This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver, and so the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of Council for Monday, June 22nd at 7 o'clock. We have an agenda that's been circulated ahead of time. I would like to make one minor adjustment to it. I'd like to add the community, the Design and Heritage Awards to the agenda and move them to the front end of the meeting. Moved by Councillor Murray, second by Councillor Back. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. We'd like to start our meeting off in a good way, and Councillor Back has volunteered to read our land acknowledgement.
Can we get it on the screen?
On that screen.
We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Council, we have meeting minutes that have been circulated with the package. These are from the May 25th, 2026 public meeting. Any errors or omissions from those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, moved by Councillor Murray. Is there seconded by Councillor Back? Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, at this point, we're going to go right into the recognitions portion of this evening, and we do have a special treat for everybody. We're going to be doing the Community Heritage Awards and the Advisory Design Panel Awards. And I have a bit of a script somewhere here that's going to help me along through this process. There we go. All right. Good evening and welcome to the District of North Vancouver's annual 2025 Design Excellence and Community Heritage Awards. Tonight's recognition event is about celebrating excellence and creativity in design. It's also about acknowledging the efforts of individuals and groups involved in promoting and conserving our heritage. We've reflected on the past year and are pleased to have identified several excellent projects that contribute to the design and heritage in the district. And you may not always automatically recognize good design in the community. It sometimes presents as a bit of a feel, a characteristic in that particular neighborhood, or something that just fits in rather well. It's something that the professionals who are designing these projects work very hard to create and come up with sort of a brand for a building, but also a setting for it amongst the neighborhood. And so these design awards give us an opportunity to look at innovations in design, but also developers who have gone the extra mile to produce a really great project that we can all be proud of. And for heritage in our community, I'm a former chair of the Heritage Commission. We use heritage to tell our community's story, to be able to tell people about the history of the neighborhood, whether it's a walking tour through Lynn Valley, learning about Shakedown and learning about the development of Allen and Draycott and obviously J.M. Frome and all of the people who we can tell really cool stories about the pioneering period and development of our community. And also beyond that, to tell about the deeper history in our community. And it's always a great opportunity to take a little bit of time out of a council meeting and recognize people who are working in those fields. So tonight I'm going to turn over the meeting to Mr. John Maselli from our Development Planning Department and Staff Liaison for the Advisory Design Panel for the presentation of the 2025 Design Excellence Awards. John.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. My name is John Maselli, Staff Liaison for the Advisory Design Panel and Development Planner at the District. I'm presenting here tonight with Jessica Lee, Staff Liaison for the Community Heritage Advisory Committee and Community Planner. Tonight, it's our pleasure to present the 2025 Design Excellence and Community Heritage Awards. The Design Excellence Awards recognize outstanding contributions to the district's built environment. They highlight projects that achieved occupancy in the past year, where the applicant and their collaborators demonstrated exceptional creativity, commitment, and responsiveness to neighborhood context. The recipients you'll see tonight were selected by the district's advisory design panel to highlight the people and projects that are helping to shape a more vibrant and sustainable community here in the district. Before we announce tonight's recipients, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the district's ADP, whose members are the driving force behind today's awards. The ADP is a technical committee of North Shore residents who generously volunteer their time and expertise in architecture, landscape architecture, visual art, accessibility, engineering, development, construction, and public safety. Their role is to assess major development proposals and advise on how well each aligns with the district's urban design objectives, policies, and plans. Each year, completed projects are reviewed and rated by the panel to determine whether they meet the criteria for a Design Excellence Award or an Award of Merit. And at this time, I'd like to formally recognize our current and recently appointed ADP members, John Gilmore, Teague Martin, Jay Boyce, Vanessa Cohn, Adam Gruchala, Razul Godosi, Nancy Paul, Kusha Karadmania, Robert Green, David Park, Sergeant Kevin Bracewell, and Corporal Paulo Arriaga. And we are incredibly fortunate to have such talented and committed group of people helping shape the future of our communities. Thank you. So this year, the panel evaluated a strong short list of projects. And from that list, 4 developments stood out for their thoughtful planning, innovative architecture, and connection to place. And the 4 nominated projects are the Fulmer Family Center for Childhood Studies at Capilano University, Emerald Townhomes in Lionsgate Village Center, Parkside at Wynn and Towns at Wynn in Wynn Valley Town Center, and Rupert Street Townhomes in Wynn Creek Town Center. So with that, let's begin with our first Design Excellence Award winner. Our first Design Award of Excellence goes to the Fulmer Family Center for Childhood Studies, located on Capilano University campus. The advisory design panel commended this project for its strong architectural expression and high quality materiality, particularly the use of timber as a defining structural and aesthetic element. The panel also recognized the thoughtful integration of indoor and outdoor learning environments, highlighting the project's strong relationship with the surrounding forest and natural campus context. Please join me in congratulating the team behind this project, Capilano University, Public Architecture, and PFS Studio. And I'd now like to invite the project team to come up and accept their Design Excellence Award. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Our next Design Award of Excellence goes to Emerald Townhomes, a 41-unit townhouse development located in Lionsgate Village Center. The panel commended this project for its strong site planning and integration with the adjacent Capilano River Regional Park. The development was recognized for its coherent architectural language and unified material palette, with the panel noting the well-designed internal courtyard and public pathways, contributing positively to both the resident experience and the broader public realm. Please join me in congratulating the team behind Emerald Townhomes, CityMark, Woodbridge Homes, Sekozy Architecture, and M2 Landscape Architecture.
Congratulations.
There we go. Why don't two of you go on that side? For more balance. Do you want to come on that side, Jim?
Congratulations.
Our next Design Award of Excellence goes to Parkside at Wynn and Towns at Wynn, phases 2 and 3 of the Emery Village development in Wynn Valley Town Center. The panel commended this project for its skillful arrangement of diverse housing forms, successfully managing the site's density, as well as its strong integration with the surrounding natural context and nearby Kirkstone Park. The panel also recognized the high-quality landscape design and well-executed shared courtyard spaces that provide great amenity spaces for residents. Please join me in congratulating the Parkside at Wynn and Towns at Wynn team, Mosaic Homes, RWA Group Architecture, and Durante Crook.
See you. Thank you so much. Good, for you. Okay.
And I'm now pleased to present an award of merit, which is given to projects that demonstrate notable design qualities, creative approaches, and a valuable contribution to the built environment, but deserve special acknowledgement from a panel. This year's award of merit goes to Rupert Street Townhomes in Wind Creek Town Center. The panel commended this project for demonstrating a high degree of creativity and design effort. The panel specifically recognized the engaging architectural features of the development, like its internal courtyard design and public art panels. The panel also commended the highly efficient use of the site, applying a stacked townhouse and apartment typology to successfully achieve residential density within a compact and functional urban form. Please join me in congratulating the team behind Rupert Street Townhomes. I'd like to now invite Reddick Developments, Iredale Architecture, and ETA Landscape Architecture to come to the front.
Shuffle this way just a smidge. I'm gonna have you guys come in nice and tight over here.
Squeeze in a little bit.
Congratulations.
And those are the Advisory Design Panel Awards. Thank you very much. And I'd now like to pass the presentation off to my colleague, Jessica Lee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Lee. I am the community planner with the district's community planning department and also the acting staff liaison for the Community Heritage Advisory Committee. Tonight, I have the pleasure of announcing our 2025 Community Heritage Awards. The Community Heritage Awards are presented each year to recognize and honor the efforts of individuals or groups involved in promoting and conserving heritage in the district. Recent past Heritage Award winners are shown on the screen and reflect the range and diversity of heritage projects recognized each year. The last Heritage Awards was presented in 2024, where Capilano Suspension Bridge Park and Grouse Mountain received awards for their significant bodies of work focused on sharing knowledge and increasing awareness, understanding, and preservation of local heritage. This year, there are 5 categories for Heritage Awards, including maintenance and restoration of structures, heritage advocacy, heritage landscape preservation and enhancement, compatible new design in a heritage context, and promotion, celebration, and retention of cultural and social heritage. Heritage Award recipients are nominated by the public as well as the district's Community Heritage Advisory Committee. The committee is comprised of volunteers with expertise or an interest in local history, architecture, building restoration, and heritage conservation. Our committee members currently include Jim Paul, who is our current chair, James Mitchell, our current vice chair, Mitchell Baker, Tricia McCarthy, Claudio Soligon, Greg Warner, and Councillor Hanson, who is our current council representative. Our committee members advise on heritage conservation matters and provide support for activities that advance heritage conservation in the district. The efforts of the committee raise the community's awareness of heritage issues and contribute to the preservation and protection of heritage assets. Now, here are the Community Award winner or Heritage Award winners for 2025. Darren Yelton, in recognition of his promotion, celebration, and retention of cultural and social heritage, and North Shore Heritage Preservation Society, in recognition for their heritage advocacy. Darren Yelton is a master carver from the Squamish Nation, and his art is seen in numerous locations across the district in the North Shore. Through his many projects over the years, he is recognized for promoting, educating, and strengthening Coast Salish culture and history. Last year, he partnered with C-SPAN to restore a historic 18-foot totem pole that was carved by artist Tommy Moses in 1948 and originally stood by the Cates Building in Lonsdale Key. Darren's hard work was celebrated at a traditional opening of the eye ceremony at C-SPAN's Pemberton Avenue location early last year, where the pole now stands and welcomes employees every day. Some of his previous and ongoing projects that have an impact on the district community include the welcome poles at Handsworth Secondary School and the School District 44 office, both projects of which involved an educated school district students in the carving process. Most recently, Darren created and gifted a memorial pole for Lionsgate Hospital's new acute care tower in honor of his mother. The memorial pole will be installed in front of the acute care tower in early July, and it will serve to welcome patients to the facility and honor those that have passed. This award is presented to Darren Yelton, who is here this evening. So with the mayor's permission, I would like to invite Darren up to Congratulations, Darren. This next award goes to North Shore Heritage Preservation Society. A small volunteer-run organization, North Shore Heritage began in 2005 and celebrated its 20-year anniversary last year. North Shore Heritage is run by a small group of dedicated volunteers who advocate for preservation of historic assets through various education and awareness initiatives. This includes providing resources and supports to heritage homeowners in the community, such as how-to guides to researching and maintaining heritage homes, as well as publishing educational articles on its blog, which includes stories about North Shore's rich social and cultural history, as well as hosting educational events in the community, which connect North Shore Heritage members, the public, North Shore municipalities, and partner agencies such as Museum and Archives of North Vancouver. This award is presented to North Shore Heritage, and I would like to invite several representatives that are here today, including Jennifer Clay, Anne-Marie Lawrence, Losine Wallace, Peter Miller, and Nancy Smith.
Why don't we get two of you on this side?
Congratulations to all the winners. And that concludes the 2025 Community Heritage Awards presentation. I'll hand it back to Mayor Little.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jessica and John. And Really do appreciate all of their work that different advisory groups go through to select winners for us. I'm sure it's also a labor of love as you get to look through all of the projects that happen in the community, and something that I know our volunteer groups look forward to every year. So again, congratulations to all of the recipients. This concludes the 2025 Design Excellence and Community Heritage Awards recognitions. Congratulations again to all the award recipients, and thank you to everyone for joining us in on the celebration this evening. The recipients are absolutely welcome to stay through our council meeting, or if you wish, you can head on out, but we have an exciting council meeting for you if you do want to stay.
Yes, I would like to invite future Everglade Council and the mayor to this ceremony. It'll be on, I think, at 10 in the morning.
You have a longer list.
Oh, click the page. So this is at the items. The other one is my.
Okay. Okay. Right. We might be competing with them for noises for a little bit, but we'll give them a moment to move out to the front of the building there. It'll be a little bit quieter. But I'm going to carry on with this evening's meeting. The next item is public input. Our council sets aside a period of up to half an hour at the beginning of every regular meeting of council to hear issues of concern from our residents. We do have 4 speakers who have signed up to speak in advance at the front of the meeting, and we have enough time for about 10. So when we get to the end of the 4, I'll ask out to the room, see if anyone else would like to add their comments. And so the first speaker I have is Stephen Bailey, speaking on item 8.3. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Well, good evening, Mayor Little and members of council. My name is Stephen Bailey, and together with my wife, Katie, we are the owners of 3526 Everglade Place. I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous speaking tonight. I do actually give presentations in my day-to-day, but
you're doing fine.
This feels a little bit more intimidating. But I am incredibly grateful and honored and humbled to be here. Before anything else, I want to thank council for your time and your consideration, and I want to thank district staff over the past year. We've worked closely with planners, heritage staff, engineers, arborists, a variety of consultants, and many others. And this application represents an enormous amount of effort from a lot of people that care deeply about getting this right. When Katie and I first came across the Perry residence, we didn't see a development opportunity. We saw a responsibility. We also saw a place where we could raise our family. Our intention has always been to restore the Perry residence and make it our home. That matters because this isn't a project that we're planning to walk away from. We are invested in a home that we intend to live in, care for, and steward for many years to come. We saw a home designed by Arthur Erickson, one of Canada's most significant architects, sitting right here in North Vancouver. We also saw a house that needed help. A house with incredible architectural value, but one that had reached a point where doing nothing was no longer a realistic option. The reality is that preserving heritage is rarely easy. It requires creativity, it requires compromise, and it requires people willing to take on risk. And it requires a community willing to support preservation when the opportunity presents itself. Over the past year, we've assembled an incredible team. We've worked with heritage consultants, architects, engineers, landscape architects, arborists, house movers, and district staff to develop a path forward that protects this home and allows it to remain in North Vancouver for future generations. For us, the objective has never been the subdivision itself. The objective has always been the preservation, relocation, and restoration of the Perry residence. The subdivision is simply the mechanism that makes this preservation possible. I understand that council has a responsibility to carefully consider every application that comes before you. That's exactly as it should be. What I hope you'll see in the presentation tonight that follows is a proposal that balances heritage preservation, neighborhood character, environmental considerations, and long-term stewardship of an important piece of North Vancouver's history. But most importantly, I hope you'll see a group of people who are committed to doing the hard work required to ensure that this home has a future. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for considering the application.
Thank you for your comments, Stephen Bailey. The next speaker I have is Ian Rose Innes. Should have you bring in the bike sometime. We should just bring the bike right into the middle of the council chambers. That'd be awesome. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Your Honour, councillors, my name is Ian Rose Innes. I'm the founder and chairman of Cycling Without Age North Shore. Cycling Without Age started in 2012 in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's now in 42 countries with 3,500 plus chapters, and there are 22 chapters in BC. Our chapter services the whole of the North Shore. We take mobility challenged people for free, I repeat, free rides on trails from 4 bases using 4 two-seater and 2 wheelchair carrying trishaws. We serve 21 care organizations. In 2024, we provided 624 rides, and in 2025, 1,071 rides. Our core service is providing rides at the door of 18 care organizations each week during the dry season. We ride waterfront, urban and forest trails, and quiet streets. Our special events offer the public and bus loads of residents from care homes to take rides on forest trails at the Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve and Bridgeman and Ambleside Park. 2025, we hosted 12 groups and transported some groups from not-for-profit care homes using a bus loaned to us by the West Vancouver Seniors Activity Centre. In 2026, we plan public and group rides for 6 days in the Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve and 8 days from Ambleside and Bridgeman Park. The District of West Vancouver has again offered us the use of their bus for all these days to allow groups of non-profit residents to join us. We want to say thanks very much to the District of North Vancouver for funding the parking of our cargo trailer in the underground parking at Lynn Valley. It gives us a base from which we can serve the 4 care residences in the area. I particularly want to say a big thank you to Councillor Herman Ma, who not only helped us acquire that space, but is also helping us significantly with our sustainability for our long-term continued operation. We thank the district most sincerely for their ongoing support and acknowledge it on our social media and all our newsletters and handouts. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for your comments, Ian Rose Innes. Thank you. The next speaker I have is Casey Cleland, also joining us here in person. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Casey Cleland. My wife and I, we've lived in and on West Queens Road, just outside of Edgemont Village for over 18 years. I'm here tonight to speak specifically about the proposed precast concrete barriers and parking removal on our block, to ask Council to pause and test the assumptions behind this design. In June of this year, residents received notice that already described detailed design elements, precast concrete curbs, removal of parking on the north side, a construction window that is going to be beginning at the end of June here, as you're most likely aware. At the same time, staff were described as gathering feedback during and after the project. To many of us, that sequence suggests consultation followed a largely settled design, and rather than genuinely shaping it. As a resident directly on this corridor, I'm asking you to consider whether this meets your fiduciary duty, not just to inform, but meaningfully include those most affected by what is going to take place. The project justification also acknowledges that current cyclists use on this segment section that we're talking about is low. Yet it assumes that continuous concrete separation is necessary and proportionate. That raises a simple logical question. What corridor-specific evidence shows that this is high-impact treatment is required here rather than preferred under a general guideline? Before residents are asked to accept permanent barriers, we should be able to see the actual traffic counts, bicycle counts, collision history, and the analysis of alternative, less intrusive designs. Without that, it's very difficult to say that this design is proportionate to the local conditions. There's also operational and character issues. Fixed barriers remove lateral maneuvering space for emergency vehicles and complicate snow, debris, and clearing on already constrained corridor. This stretch of Queens is not Lonsdale or Marine Drive. It's a village adjacent residential street with multiple driveways and existing pressure on parking and access. The north, to be clear, this is not a major arterial. The North Shore or the North Vancouver Sports Advisory Council has written to you already about parking and coordination issues near Delbrook and William Griffin. Their concerns and ours point to the same question, and these projects being coordinated and scaled on a way that respects how residents and users actually experience these spaces.
If you could draw it to a close, please.
My request is, first and foremost, to pause this implementation of continuous precast barriers. Get the information that's statistically evident of this procedure in place so we can take a look at it. And third, provide the ways and means for us to consolidate our conversations with you so that we can do this. We like this proposal. We don't like these concrete barriers.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Casey Cleland. The next speaker I have is John Laxdell, also joining us here in person. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. So I'm here to talk about the same issue as Casey, and we've been talking. So anyways, so I'm John Laxdell. I live at 936 West Queens Road. I've been there for 26 years. And so I know the context of this project. So I'm a directly impacted stakeholder. So I'm a civil engineer, PEng. I'm retired now, but I've got over 40 years of experience. I've worked on all sizes and forms of projects throughout British Columbia, throughout Western Canada, and some international projects. Anyways, most recently I was the senior principal at WSP, and previously I was regional manager for Wood, and I was responsible for many offices and departments in British Columbia. I've worked as a geotechnical designer, pavement engineer, and project manager on many large projects in BC, such as Golden Ears Bridge, Site C Dam, and Lionsgate Bridge. Years ago, I did work for the District of North Vancouver on pavement management. I've interacted with specialist transportation engineers on all of these projects, including specialists in cycling. As Casey mentioned, there's a lot of concern with this project and the way it's been implemented without inclusion of stakeholder concerns. There are many issues that will be impacted by the precast curb separations as designed, emergency vehicle accommodation. You know, I look out onto Queens all the time and I see the ambulances going to the village often. You know, there's a seniors home there, and I think that attracts a lot of ambulances, unfortunately. And then also there's fire and police. And when the ambulance, fire truck, police car are coming down the road, people are supposed to get out of the way. With the curbs in place, there'll be no way to get out of the way. There's issue with accommodating garbage and recycling pickup. You know, I've got a lot of detail on that. I haven't got time to address it. Snow and ice removal. You know, this is a bus route and it's priority for snow and ice removal. It'll need specialized equipment to get into the cycling lanes. On-street parking will be lost, and there's supposedly already insufficient parking at the rec center, so we'll lose even more of that. On my block, people dropping off their children at the school park in front of my house and up and down the street because there's no room around the school. Warrants for this type of treatment for cyclists. The backup material that we were provided only shows one incident of an accident between cyclist and a car.
If you could draw to a close, please, Mr. Laxnell.
Will do. So anyways, so my recommendation, as with Casey, is that the council puts a hold on the project for now until such time as stakeholder comments have been received and people have been able to address them, and that alternatives are considered.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Welcome.
We do have the email addresses of both of you, and we'll make sure there's a full staff response to your concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We still have time for additional speakers. Would anybody else like to address the council meeting? And to virtual participants, if you raise your virtual hand, we'll get you over into the meeting. Okay, I don't see any other speakers, so I'm going to carry on with this evening's agenda at this point. At this point, I'm going to welcome up our representatives from TransLink. We're going to be coming and doing a delegation while they're getting ready. A delegation is a little different from regular community public input in that it's an update from a neighborhood organization or a group within our community, in this case, clearly a partner of ours. And they'll have an opportunity to produce a 5-minute opportunity to speak, followed by some Q&A with the council. Sarah, I'm just going to let you know, your flashlight's on your phone. There you go. At this point, I'd like to welcome up Sarah Ross. If you could introduce your delegation, that'd be appreciated.
Very much for having us this evening. I'm Sarah Ross. I'm the Vice President of Planning with TransLink. Joining me today is Klassen Mock, who's our Senior Manager of BRT. And also in the audience today is Aaron Leung, who is our Public Affairs Lead. We're pleased to be here today to give you an update on the Metrotown to North Shore Bus Rapid Transit project. I do want to start by, do we have slides? We should have slides. We do have slides.
Were they preloaded or do you have them on a thumb drive?
Yep, they're on PDF at the bottom tab.
You got to click the things in the bottom center.
Bottom center. Oh, I see.
See where it says.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oh,
okay.
There you go.
Great. So I want to start by expressing our appreciation to your staff. They've been great partners on this. And of course, overall, this is a partnership of 5 municipalities, the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, and 3 First Nations. An important precursor to the BRT is the extension of the existing R2 Rapid Bus. Those are the green buses. So known as the R2 Marine Willingdon Rapid Bus, this route will be extended from its current terminus at Phibbs Exchange all the way to Metrotown. And we're doing that 3 months ahead of schedule, and it's launching on September 7th of this year. So for the first time, there will be a one-seat ride that connects all the way from Park Royal across the North Shore, connecting at Brentwood, BCIT, and Metrotown. Now, currently, this service runs every 10 minutes during peak times, but with the launch of the extension in September, we're providing a significant frequency increase, and it'll run every 6 to 7 minutes during peak times. Now, as part of the planning for the BRT work, we undertook some public engagement on service features, design priorities, as well as the routing. And through this process, we received over 12,000 survey responses, driven through notification across our digital platforms, in-person, and direct mail. By responses, this is actually one of our largest public engagements. And we heard from residents living across the corridor about how they want this project to improve transportation in their communities. There were more than 3,000 respondents who live on the North Shore. And 6 key themes emerged from this engagement. There's a high level of support for the BRT project, with 80% of respondents expecting transportation on this corridor to improve. And we know that people want faster, more frequent, more reliable service across the corridor. They want weather protection and better lighting. Specifically for North Shore residents, they want a service that improves connectivity on and across the North Shore, in addition to connecting them to the rest of the region. When asked about technical design priorities and how to balance existing vehicle access and improving transit priority, respondents generally supported shifting towards new transit priority measures. Respondents want a service that is an alternative to being stuck in traffic. Initial ridership projections show that the Metrotown to North Shore BRT could have up to 60,000 average daily boardings, which would make it one of the most well-used routes in the region. It would access 98,000 jobs within 800 meters of the corridor. Dedicated bus infrastructure, high-quality stations, and frequent service that runs all day, every day, give people a real alternative to driving. And all of this contributes to transit being economic infrastructure and unlocking access to economic opportunity. Now, all projects go through different project development phases. This first phase, which we call the 5% design phase, confirmed the route alignment and stop locations. All of the existing stop locations for the R2 Rapid Bus on the North Shore will be the same for the BRT. And we're now advancing towards completion of the 10% stage. And over the next year, we'll continue to refine the lane configuration options towards a single preferred end-to-end design. Now, we are investigating 2 different design options for the BRT. Where there are fewer constraints, running the BRT in the center is preferred. This is less affected. This means the bus service is less affected by vehicle traffic. It avoids right-turning vehicles. People enable still access to businesses, through driveways. But also, side-running BRT can provide significant benefits as well by providing that more reliable travel time as well, with less congestion, and it can be easier to fit into existing streets. The choices we make around the extent of bus priority and the lane configuration options to support that are partially informed by performance assessments. So our analysis and modeling have indicated that the project could have dedicated lanes between 50 to 75% of the corridor, and that could deliver a service that can run over 30% faster than local services and provide travel times that are competitive to driving. And we know that there are pressing needs on the North Shore, which is why we're really pleased to get the R2 out and continue to work on this BRT design. BRT is a flexible technology where we can add transit priority over time. It doesn't have to be exactly the same in every spot. So to wrap up, we're going to complete our 10% design this summer. We'll be working on the 30% design and refining that over about a year, and we anticipate coming back to council in 2017. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So just my own comments first. I work very closely with the TransLink team. I am the District of North Vancouver's rep on TransLink on the Mayor's Council. And then from the Mayor's Council, I also sit on the main board of TransLink and sit as the chair of the Finance Committee, co-chair of the Finance Committee with the two boards. And I know the challenges financially are very significant for being able to provide reliable alternative to cars. I appreciate you making the comment about center lane versus side lanes. You guys have to make the decision based on the total performance in the space, but it would be a challenge for us if, you know, as Marine Drive is an example where you've got the 240, the 241, and the 255 out of West Van all come through that corridor. They have to be able to access the curb lane in that spot. And so if we make the center lane in that stretch the fast, no congestion protected route, you'll have rapid buses passing a whole bunch of absolutely stuck local buses. And so, you know, I hope you can look at different alternatives for that. I guess my question would be, well, before I get to the question, it's very important that people use the rapid bus. The BRT is not fully funded. The design work is being done. We need people to use the rapid bus in order to be able to justify higher levels of service within the system. And so I would just encourage everybody to consider how you could use it to your advantage. The question I'll ask you is, well, we want FIBS Exchange to work, and this provides a great opportunity for FIBS Exchange to have a direct access, frequent access to two SkyTrain lines for people who want to be able to get out into the region or get to the North Shore for work. But one thing's been missing for a long time there: washrooms. And so while I have this opportunity with you here in our council chambers, wondering if you can give an update on washrooms at FIBS Exchange.
I'm pleased to do that. And I do want to note, Mayor, I'm not sure I've ever met with you and you haven't used that as an opportunity. I know how much this is important to your community and how much you have been a champion of washrooms at FIBS Exchange. It is a priority for TransLink. We recently opened with great success the washroom at Metrotown Station, and FIBS is the next priority. We have issued, we're in procurement now for a contractor to construct the washroom. That bidding will close by the end of this month, and then we'll review those and we'll be able to give you a more detailed updated timeline on when the washrooms will be open and available for the public and transit customers that use FIBS Exchange.
Fantastic. I'll keep asking, but thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And so I've heard the mayor's comments in regards to the center lane or the curb lane design, and it's going to be an interesting process to see how we manage that, because it's there's some impediments along the line from one municipality to the next. I'm a little bit interested in what happens. I know we have the advanced queuing onto the bridge, but what happens when we get onto the bridge? Because in the evening, you know, we know that the backups on the cut are significant. The bridge is over capacity in those peak times. And pretty much to Willingdon, which is where the exit would be for this service, it is bumper to bumper. So is TransLink thinking of taking a lane on the bridge to advance this service?
No, we are not. We have been very clear right from when we first talked about this, is that we're not looking to reallocate any lanes on the bridge. I will also note that it'll exit just after the bridge at the Hastings exit. It won't stay on the highway till the Willingdon exit, because it's going to connect to Brentwood. We don't know the exact alignment right through North Burnaby yet, but it will exit at that Hastings. So we're not reallocating a lane on the bridge. It will run in mixed traffic, and we do have good transit priority right up to the bridgehead at this point.
Okay, but the bridge impact is going to impact the time allowed for that bus even to get to Hastings. I mean, sometimes with that volume, it is bumper to bumper to bumper.
Yeah, that is a reality that we have to work with right now until that bridge is replaced.
Okay.
And that's
going to be a long time, I think.
Not a TransLink bridge, so they don't have to deliver that one.
I think though that we have to understand, how that impacts the ridership on the bus. Because this is meant to create efficiencies and improve time, and yet, we may be able to achieve that along the corridor. I guess we'll have to see what the costs are, but it's once we get on the bridge, do we lose all that time because of the volume on the bridge and growing volume, I might add.
I would say certainly what we look at is every opportunity to provide transit priority bus lanes so that the buses and the people on the buses aren't stuck in traffic. We recognize that we're working within a lot of constraints, as you've noted, and we have to figure out the best that we can do. And there will be places where the bus is going to have to run in mixed traffic. We have to balance many different needs because we also need our roads to function for a whole variety of users, and that's a priority for TransLink as well. So the nice thing about a bus rapid transit is that it is the kind of thing that you can get in place, and it doesn't have to be perfect and exactly the same the whole corridor. You can have some sections that work really well, and that'll be really, really important when there will be some other sections where the constraints are such that we won't be able to have dedicated lanes on opening day.
So when we talk about the configuration of the lanes, we've got center lane between Cotton or Brooksbank and Phibbs Exchange. We've got the center lane design. And given the comments of Mayor Little in regards to the curb along Marine Drive and those buses sitting there, will you look at, could there be both options? You're going to maintain the center lane on the Main Street section? You wouldn't switch that, would you?
I think we certainly look at how the local traffic the local bus service interacts. And, there are certain BRT systems where local service uses that BRT lanes. Other places that doesn't make sense. So all of this is the kinds of things that we're going to be grappling through with your staff.
Because right now the lineup on Main Street is often to Lonsdale on a daily basis. That's where the curb lane it fills the load. Because we've got one lane moving into two lanes, they've managed to widen the merge onto the bridge. There is the issue of the lights that switch on and off onto the bridge, the merge lanes onto the bridge, which in my opinion are very problematic. And it was a financial issue not to camera them like the first narrows and allow the lanes to switch. So you're, apart from the bus, which is an important part to allow the bus to advance, the inability for those lights not to be turned off in high volume is a lost opportunity, I think, because the zipper on the second narrows works perfectly when the volume is heavy, and starting and stopping that volume is very problematic. And what it does is frustrate people that are stuck in the lanes trying to get to the Seymour, and that population continues to grow. And so you've got drivers running in the bus lane because they are stuck, because all of the volume that is heading over the second narrows from Main Street, coming down 3rd Street, coming down the low-level road, heading eastbound, are sitting in two lanes and then cutting in as they get to the intersection of Mountain Highway, and then again cutting in when they get onto the merge onto the second narrows. Plus, you've got southbound heavy-duty double tandem rigs coming from Linterm trying to merge as well onto the bridge. So it's chaos. It is dysfunctional. It is creating issues of road rage at that intersection on a regular basis. And you've got an empty lane for the most part, and we'll see what kind of volume the bus rapid transit along with the regular buses will fill into that center bus only lane. But it is frustrating when people are just trying to get home and they see an empty lane and they can't use it. So we are geographically constrained. We have a bridge that is not going to be fixed for many years, decades, I would suggest. And we're going to have to work with what we've got. And I hope there's an understanding that people that are just trying to go home, need to be also prioritized in this as well. So we need to share the geography that we have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Muri. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you have done on North Shore Bus Rapid Transit. It's obviously an important initiative for people on the North Shore. For those of us that have been calling for better transit, this would seem to be an excellent initiative and perhaps a precursor to SkyTrain Rapid Transit or Rail Rapid Transit down the road. In your report, you say that 10% design will be completed this summer. You say 30% design will be completed by Q2 and Q4, and you're going to come back in 2027 for another update. The question that I had when I read the notes of your presentation is, I mean, what type of a time frame are we talking about in terms of delivering this service to North Shore residents to provide them some significant improvement with respect to transit on the North Shore? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question through the mayor. We, I think the implementation time will depend on some of the constraints, but we may be able to have a first phase of implementation within 3 years of having funding for the project, which we don't have funded yet. And of course, we have to go through and complete all of this design and work with you to confirm what the design will be along the corridor.
Just following up on that and talking a little bit about funding, we get directives from the provincial government telling us that we have to densify across the North Shore, add more people. And we say in response, yes, but we need some kind of critical infrastructure to support us. Where's this funding coming from? Can you tell us a little bit about the funding that will make the North Shore Bus Rapid Transit possible? Thanks.
Well, we certainly agree that the transit is critical infrastructure, one of the many types of infrastructure that's needed to support the growth and the housing development that's needed in this region. So we are, through the Mayor's Council and the TransLink Board, working with senior levels of government to secure their contribution to this and other projects in the region.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mah.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for coming to answer our questions. As Councillor Hanson mentioned, transit mobility on the North Shore is probably our #1 issue. I have a bunch of questions. Sorry, I'm trying to organize it, but I think I'll just throw them out. I was curious, would rapid bus service be adjusted once BRT is implemented?
The BRT would be a replacement to the rapid bus service. It's an upgrade to the service. So we'll follow the same alignment, subject to, notwithstanding that we haven't determined the final BRT alignment in North Burnaby, but on the North Shore, it would follow the same alignment. And it will be an upgrade to the rapid bus service.
Okay. Because the rapid bus seems to be every couple of stops sometimes. So that will follow the same model then?
So it will have the same stops as the rapid bus has today. That's the green, what's branded as green. Oftentimes it's not a green bus, but then there's the special green bus stop ID poles.
Okay. I may not have recalled that.
Local buses stop about every 200 to 400 meters, and the rapid buses and BRTs stop about every 1.25 kilometers.
Right. So the regular buses will continue then?
We will, yes, there will still be underlying, what we call in the business, underlying local service. We will look at whether it makes any sense to make any changes to that, as we do as on a periodic basis, but those would continue.
At one time when we were, if I remember correctly, I think this was before I was on council, we were looking at increased bus service, and there was some challenges with not having a bus depot here. With the bus rapid transit, do you need a North Shore base for the buses?
No, we do not. We would run the buses that would run on the BRT would be based out of the Burnaby Transit Center.
Okay. And would BRT schedule incorporate additional service during peak times, or is it a constant service throughout the day?
it would run more frequently during peak times, but it would run very frequently throughout the whole day, probably during the middle of the day, every 10 minutes, in the peak time up to every 5 minutes, maybe in the evenings later, it might drop to every 15 minutes.
Is it anticipated that the buses for the BRT be the longer articulated buses, or is that depending on, I would guess, ridership? I get it, you're going to base it on ridership, but is the plan for the longer buses?
The plan is, yes, for those 60-foot longer articulated buses.
Okay. And as I can see by the route, it's east-west.
And west-east.
Yep. I do have I didn't bring my compass card, but I do take the buses usually when I go downtown for meetings or events and stuff. And I might have posed this question before. I wanted to get downtown. I would probably need to transfer somewhere, or is there any thought on having some sort of service go downtown at peak times?
This route would not go downtown. So there are some North Shore routes that do go directly from the North Shore to downtown Vancouver during peak times. So you don't have to transfer. This route will terminate at the will connect to the SkyTrain at Brentwood on the Millennium Line, which you then would be able to transfer to the Millennium Line and some point in.
So I take the 240 to go downtown, and I do experience the occasional pass ups. So I'm trying to understand. If I'm going downtown, I take the BRT.
You'd actually have multiple different options, which actually makes overall more resilient. So on this, you could transfer to the C-Bus. You could go over the Ironworkers Bridge and transfer to the SkyTrain. You could take one of our direct services. You could even go to Park Royal and transfer to one of the buses going downtown. So there would be multiple different options, which really helps transit customers if usually they have their default option, but maybe something's not going well that day.
It'll share stations with the R5 as well on Hastings. It goes direct, so you can. That's probably the shortest, most direct route.
So this a comment. I'm sure you hear this. I get it. We have more options, but usually when you change, you lose a little time waiting for the next bus. Like when I go downtown and I go onto your website to plan my trip, it never tells me to take the C-Bus because the frequency isn't enough from my community to the C-Bus. So I walk down to take the 240, and then sometimes I hit the pass ups. So that's my challenge.
Yeah. So certainly pass ups is not, we don't want people to have pass ups. So we are doing the best we can with our constrained resources to allocate our service. It's something we monitor. We monitor our ridership. We monitor our overcrowding. We try to allocate service to avoid pass ups so that you don't have that situation. And yes, you're right. Often taking a bus over the bridge is faster than taking the C-Bus, but the C-Bus is a great ride.
It is. Love it. This one final question. So thank you for your patience in answering my question. East-west, west-east. What would need to occur for the BRT extensions to be considered for potentially Cap U and maybe to Lynn Valley, one of our major town centers?
We did look at Cap U. We know that, and we've had lots of contact with particularly students at Cap U. We know how important a destination that is. We know how much people attend Cap U from across the North Shore, but across the region, a high percentage of students are coming all the way from Surrey. So, however, when you provide a service, a rapid transit service like this, you want it to be particularly direct. So we will not be diverting it to reach any of those other destinations because it would be a lot of people who want to ride through and over. So we will, and we are working with the CAPU to make sure there's a very frequent transit service. So you're correct in that transit customers, there's a transfer penalty because you have to wait. But overall, if you're transferring from a very high frequent service to another very frequent service, that can actually provide a better travel time than if you had to try to have your bus routes going all over the place, trying to hit every destination.
The only thing I would, and you know this better than I do, the only thing I would ask you to consider is when I take the Canada line heading south, you can get on different trains to get to the different destinations. So I just don't know if, that's a feasibility during morning rush with schools to say, hey, yes, we have the bus coming from Metrotown, but if you're coming from Metrotown and going to Cap U, you take the first bus. If you're going right across the Park Royal, you wait for the next one. Like I said, I just think about what they do when you take the Canada line out towards the airport. There's sorry, I forget the other station because I never go there, but there's the airport. So, you pick the one you get on. Just something to think about. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Back.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your presentation. Just wanted to say how excited I am about the launch of R2's extension September 7th ahead of time. I was at the chamber breakfast along with a couple of my colleagues when that was that week that it was announced. You were saying that peak service will go to about every 6 or 7 minutes, reducing wait times. What does that look like with BRT? Is that even higher?
Yeah, we would anticipate it will be at least every 6 to 7 minutes in the peak, but based on our current forecasting, we'd probably be looking at running it every 5 minutes.
That's great. One of the things I was going to ask was
just add, Councillor, that the big difference between rapid bus and BRT tries to separate 70% of its route out of regular congestion, either through queue jumping or protected lane creation. And so the big advantage is the length of your trip time, not necessarily the frequency of the bus, but how consistently you could get to those end destinations because you're not tied in congestion. So the frequency doesn't change, but actually the cost to deliver goes down because you don't have buses stuck in congestion.
Need less vehicles, probably. Less buses. Yeah. With BRT, the stops are in the same locations roughly as the R2. I'm just wondering what that means for if we look at walking and cycling routes to those stops, and I'm sure we do, but I'm just wondering how you work with municipalities to ensure that we have safe routes there, and does that introduce any new gaps potentially?
Yeah, absolutely, of paramount importance that people can walk or cycle safely to access the rapid transit. And we know that when we put in a very high quality service like this, people will be prepared to walk farther. Yeah. So that would definitely be something of our design work and our conversations with district staff, pedestrian connections. We have to make sure that people, you would always want to make sure there's safe crossings of the street if, the bus stops on either side. So that is definitely something about how we take a holistic look at making a service easy for people to use. We have to think of that entire customer experience.
Oh, that's great. I don't have too much more of a comment. A lot of the questions that I had were kind of answered. And at this stage, I just want to say I view BRT as one of the most important transportation investments for the North Shore. I think it's something that we all need to get behind. We talk about traffic congestion every single day in this role that we all serve in. So I think this truly is, is an opportunity for something to really make a difference. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Pope.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation. Gosh, I wish the minds that had started talking about this years ago had called it something else rather than BRT and R2 and bus rapid transit and rapid transit. I think it's very confusing for the public to understand, exactly what's happening and what it is. But having said that, I too am also super excited about the R2 launch September 7th. And regarding the funding, how confident are you that BRT will be funded by the province within the next year?
First, I may say that I very much appreciate your first point. It's very well taken on our nomenclature. It's tricky for people.
It was going to be called Fast and Reliable Transit at one point, but that acronym was problematic.
I want to emphasize that the work that we're doing today is funded, and it's really important work to do that we do because we have to be able to better define and cost out what the project will cost and that will help support our funding advocacy. So I'm confident that this is the work that we need to do, and that I hear very clearly across the North Shore how important a priority this is. So we need to keep the project moving and keep advocating for the funding.
Not making a prediction, huh?
It's not my role to make a prediction.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Regarding the washrooms at Phibbs Exchange, you've said the contractor will be determined by the end of this month.
We're out for tender right now for the contractor. Those the bids have to be in, I guess, next week by the end of this month. And then we'll do an evaluation for that to select that. It's just a procurement process.
Why is that taking so long to get done? Why can't we have washrooms at Phibbs this year?
We'll be able to give a timeline once we have that contractor on board.
And what do you expect? What are your expectations?
I'm sorry, but I'm not responsible for that, overseeing the construction contract. So I'm not in a position to be able to give an idea of how long it would take.
Okay.
But I hear you on how important this is. We know that at TransLink. We are, I wasn't joking. Mayor Little has been very consistent on this. So I do want you to have my assurance that this is at the highest levels. The CEO is very on top of this file and making sure that we are moving ahead with this in an appropriate but expedited manner to get these washrooms in place.
Yeah, when we met some members of this council with the CEO, Kevin Quinn, last fall, he said that the washrooms were going in probably in, I think, 2027. So that just seems like excessively long to me. And I would just like that message to be sent back to the CEO.
I will do. I hear your frustration. I appreciate your passion for our transit customers and the people who use Phibbs Exchange.
May I say the pilot at Metrotown actually went rather well, and we've just had the update from that and the number of shutdowns. It started a little rocky at the beginning, and so we were concerned that was going to cause delays. But once they sorted out the initial maintenance issues down at Metrotown, they were able to get it up and running on the regular and very well supported. So that's been good. Yes. We insisted in the last project that the pipes would be put in the ground so that it'll be easier for whoever it is that has to build it. There you go. Okay, I see no further questions from council. Call the question on receipt of the delegation. I'll move receipt of the delegations. Or second by Councillor Murray. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. On behalf of the council, thank you very much for coming and responding to our questions today. We do appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
The HRA to public hearing forward. We've got a couple of presentations by staff, and I'm just wondering if we can move the HRA for Everglade forward. It's just being asked to go to public hearing.
I've also got people here for 8-2. So I've also got people for 8-2. So I can't delay one group for the other. So at this point, we're going to carry on with the agenda. And so the first item is 8.1. And I saw Fiona here the whole evening, and then now upstairs. Fiona, fantastic. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 8.1. This is the district-wide landslide risk assessment. I believe we have a 10-minute presentation from Mr. Cole. When you're comfortable.
Well, good evening, Mayor Walton, or sorry,
Not in a while.
No, for a little bit.
I'm so sorry. Probably the last time I presented about landslide risk was to Mayor Walton.
Yes, it's been a bit.
Forgive me, and members of council. Oh, perfect. My presentation is up. It's my pleasure to introduce Lauren Hutchinson from BGC Engineering. Lauren and I will be co-presenting tonight. I'm going to set some context and background, and then Lauren's going to take us through the subject study, the landslide risk assessment. I'm going to provide some background and context about the district's history and approach to risk management and risk tolerance. Then Lauren will present the methodology, findings, and recommendations of the subject report. Then I'm going to conclude with some next steps, and we'll have some time for question and discussions. Some definitions and concepts to set the context for tonight's discussion. First of all, hazards exist whether we choose to study them or not. We live with hazards on the North Shore every day. We live with landslides, earthquakes, flood, wildfire, etc., just given our geographic nature. It's really only when people or assets are exposed to the hazards and that there's a possibility of a negative consequence. When there are social or physical vulnerabilities, the consequences can be amplified. Disaster resilience is a choice. We can take mitigative action to build resilience to hazards, and we can adapt and take actions to increase our capacity to recover and learn how to accommodate change and uncertainty. The district's framework is based on the Canadian Standards Association and the International Organization for Standardization, Guidelines for Risk Management. The district has been applying this framework for the past 20 plus years across a range of hazards. This landslide assessment study is a follow-up to the 2010 landslide risk summary that followed this framework. A key component in the risk evaluation phase, which is just below halfway down the framework, is when assessed risks are compared with risk tolerance criteria. A number of years ago, Council endorsed a policy that established risk tolerance criteria for the district, which I will briefly review now for those of you that weren't around at that time. Some key terms in risk tolerance are broadly acceptable, which means that risks from a hazard are within the range that society broadly accepts and do not require mitigation. Tolerable means that the risk is not negligible, but it can be tolerated given that effort is taken to reduce it and is kept under review. And finally, unacceptable. These are risks that are generally considered unacceptable by society and require mitigation. Because it's not often practical to reduce risk to zero, we apply the principle of a LARP, which means as low as reasonably practicable. Where risk should be reduced if reasonable opportunities exist, what would be considered unreasonable if the cost, time, and effort to reduce risk further would be grossly disproportionate to the benefits gained. Following the Berkeley landslide, the district established the Natural Hazards Task Force, where 8 community volunteers spent almost a year engaged in deep discussion with subject matter experts and hosted community consultations with the goal to establish risk tolerance criteria for our community. Council endorsed the task force's recommendations in 2009, and the policy has been applied not only in the district, but in many jurisdictions across Western Canada. I would also like to acknowledge that Mr. Eric Anderson, who is in the audience tonight, served as a member of the Natural Hazards Task Force, and we are grateful for his contributions. The district's risk tolerance criteria is basically a 2-tiered criteria where new development, extensive redevelopment, subdivisions, and rezoning are subject to a more stringent criteria than modifications to existing development. So you there have a primer on the district risk management framework and risk tolerance. I could speak about this for many hours, but in the interest of time, I'm going to pass it over to Lauren now to talk about the current landslide risk summary report. Does her microphone work there too? Okay.
Testing. Yeah, seems to work well. Thank you so much for having us this evening. I will acknowledge that I'm joined by my colleague, Sophia Zabritsky, who is in the audience here and was instrumental in this work as well. As we're thinking about a land update, I am going to start by taking us back almost 20 years now. And I'll acknowledge that the photo here is a challenging photo to see, but I think it's a really important one that underscores why the work that has been done by the district over the last 20 years and continues to be done is so important. So on January 19th, 2005, a landslide initiated on the Berkeley Escarpment. It destroyed the home of Eliza Kuttner, who lost her life, and her husband, Michael, who suffered life-altering injuries. It hit a second home at 2290 Chapman. There were 5 occupants of the home at the time, 3 of whom suffered minor injuries. Now, the district, of course, had a practice for geohazard risk management leading up to this event, but we'll acknowledge that this event was really a catalyst to improve the understanding of hazards and to take a more proactive risk management approach. And at the time, the approach that the leadership of the district took set the tone for not only the next 20 years within the district, but has set the benchmark for Western Canada and more broadly in how to engage with your community in a transparent fashion and in a proactive fashion to lead to a safer and more resilient community. If we go to the next slide, we'll just speak a little bit to what this landslide, what was typical about it and what's typical about other landslides that have originated on escarpment slopes. So what you can see here, it's a little bit small, but when the neighborhoods at the crest of the slope were developed in the 1950s, it was common practice to push fill out to create a flatter building lot and backyard that may have been supported by a retaining wall or simply over steepened, meaning that just steeper than what the natural topography is. Associated with that same development, you get more hard surfaces. So you have surface water that gets directed off of the asphalt driveways, roofs, and that was being directed onto the slopes. You can go to the next. So that increases the likelihood that you're going to have a landslide. And something that is a bit unique here is that the landslides are typically about the size of one backyard width. When that landslide moves down slope, it moves faster than any human can run or get out of the way, which is really important when we understand the risk management actions around it. And when it gets to the base of the slope, yeah, thank you, I'll get you to do one more. They spread out away from the slope and laterally, and that's what we call run out. And then just the last point here that's really important is for the elements at risk, in this case, residential properties that are in the way of that run out, it's highly destructive. And so you have the potential for loss of life for occupants of those buildings. So you can see that here. Now, following the 2005 landslide, the DNB initiated proactive risk management of natural hazards all across the district. And we can generally categorize those activities into 3 categories. One is to implement mitigation works. And thinking to what we've just described, those mitigation measures included removing fill from the crest of the slopes, reshaping the slopes so they were closer to the original natural topography, and managing surface water so that it wasn't being directed directly onto the slopes. As Fiona said, the district also formally adopted risk tolerance criteria. And BGC was engaged at the time first to understand the hazards and risks on the escarpment, the Berkeley Escarpment, and then increasing escarpment areas all across the district to a point where the last district-wide summary was prepared in November of 2010. Just acknowledge in that work as well that the district was recognized in what's the highest honor in disaster risk reduction, which is the United Nations Sasakawa Award. And at the time, and I believe still to this day, the district is the only North American group who has been recognized for that award for the work that's been done. So that brings us to today and doing the landslide risk assessment update. What we set out to do was to identify the areas that are susceptible to landslide hazards with the potential to result in loss of life, update the landslide risk estimates, communicate those study findings, and recommend risk management approaches. The question may come after 20 years, why now? And we all know, those in this room know better than I do, just how much pressure there is actually to increase housing and additional development. And so it's a really important moment to make sure that the district has the most up-to-date information. There's also been advances in the science over the last 15 years since the last update was completed that we've integrated here. The work that we've done is a district-wide assessment, and that's an important clarification because it's not an assessment at an individual property in a detailed capacity. And it was mostly done in a desktop capacity, leveraging available records, LiDAR, and slope changes. We did do a selection of visiting sites to do field verification and numerical modeling, but that was at a set number, not going to every single property one by one. So when we think about risk, we can think of it in a variety of ways. One that I think is really quite effective here is to think of it as a risk chain. So this is a risk chain, and at each of the black nodes, there's two potential paths. So as we start, we have a path where either a landslide initiates or it doesn't. If a landslide initiates, then we look at, once it's initiated, does it reach a location where there's a home that we're concerned about? If it reaches a location where there's a home, are people there? So are the elements at risk present? And then if people are there, how likely are they to experience a loss? The reason it helps us to break it down in this way is it allows us to break the problem into smaller pieces, but also target our mitigation. Is our mitigation trying to stop the landslide from initiating? Is it trying to make sure that when it happens, people aren't in their homes? Is it trying to make sure the homes are less vulnerable to loss by having more resilient construction measures? So if you go to the next slide, and then just one more. The risk tolerance policy in the district utilizes a measure of individual risk, and that's just multiplying the probabilities of all of those pieces together. If you go one more, what this 2026 update integrates is all of the mitigation works that have been implemented over the last 20 years. There's refined landslide runout using more detailed topography, and there's also advances in vulnerability modeling. So in total, we assessed 124 properties at the crest and 149 properties at the base of escarpment slopes. And we attributed them into the risk categories that Fiona introduced, so broadly acceptable, tolerable, and unacceptable. On the escarpments, some of them have development only at the crest. Some of them have development at the crest and at the base, and some have them only at the base, and those are just listed there as a reference. What we found was of the 124 properties at the crest of the slopes, all of them have a broadly acceptable risk level. At the base of the slopes, so of the 149 properties, all have broadly acceptable or tolerable risk levels, with the exception of 2 properties at the Berkeley escarpment that have unacceptable risk levels. And overall, before going to those 2 properties, what we found was the estimated risk levels have been reduced in most locations assessed from the previous work. The 2 properties at Berkeley are downslope of a property that has exactly what we talked about at the beginning. They've got a backyard that's partially supported by a retaining wall. The retaining wall is in the top right-hand photo there, and it's in failing condition. And so that increases the risk to the properties downslope. What we do know is that the district has already started conversations with those residents to replace that retaining wall, and that will bring the risk back to tolerable levels for the properties that are downslope. As we were doing the field work, you can go to the next one, we did also notice that there were practices of having yard debris and saturated fill pushed over escarpment crests. It's been, again, 20 years since the Berkeley escarpment. We can imagine that there's been a changeover in the homeowners, and some of the practices may be creeping back in. And so this is just something for us to flag and for the district to be thinking about in the continuation of proactive risk management.
Oops, sorry.
No, that's perfect. So altogether here, we have some recommendations for landslide risk management, and they're split between those that would be the responsibility of the property owners, and that includes managing stormwater on their property, managing fill and yard waste, and monitoring the condition of infrastructure, including retaining walls and swimming pools on their properties. For the district, we recommend that the district develops an ongoing monitoring program for slope conditions that could start with regular LiDAR collection and LiDAR change analysis that would help to illuminate areas of potential change. That the district continue to implement the slope hazard DPA, and that the district establish a process of updating the risk assessment similar to the work that we've just done at a frequency at maybe a decadal scale to account for potential changes in conditions and improvements in our understanding. And then finally, as the district always does, carrying on with the approach of transparency by providing information and education to residents. So in closing here, over the last 20 years, landslide risk management has led to a safer and more resilient DNV. Moving from the disaster that happened on January 2005 through implementation of mitigation measures, adoption of land use management practices through the slope hazard DPA, formally establishing risk tolerance criteria. But we also know that the work continues on the basis of some of the observations that we have seen. So with that, I'll pass it back to Fiona to talk about some of the next steps.
Thank you, Lauren. So the next steps, we will continue to provide information about hazards and risks to our community. I've been working with our communications department to update information on dnv.org and at nasim.ca. The BGC's report will be publicly available on GeoWeb tomorrow morning for residents to download and read. We will be sending letters to all 248 properties that were mentioned in the report, inviting them to view the report and to contact me if they have questions or need any assistance understanding the information. And we'll continue with our seasonal preparedness messaging during the rainy season to help residents prepare. We will secondarily review the possibility of additional monitoring programs as BGC has recommended and the related costs for council's future consideration. And we will incorporate recommended changes to the slope hazard DPA into future OCP updates. So that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you very much. I was just going to comment, this was a very personal disaster for a lot of people in our community. People who were along the escarpment in Berkeley were deeply affected by it. People at the bottom as well, and friends of ours were directly impacted where when it came to rest, it had pushed through the sidewall of their child's bedroom and pushed their daughter Cyntha's bed across the room. It came to spreading to a complete disaster within their family as well. And so it was people's houses, people's kids' bedrooms and such. So it was deeply impactful. And one of the other remarkable aspects of it was that there had been another landmark study from 20 years earlier about a slide in Hong Kong that also became an example for used internationally, just like our slide. And the interesting thing is Michael Kuttner, the fellow who was injured in it, he was also displaced in that Hong Kong slide 20 years earlier, and so ended up in both studies the same person, which is pretty remarkable 20 years later. I really appreciate, Lauren, your comments at the beginning about the importance of the Saskatchewan Award to our community. It was something we all took very seriously, very honored to be involved in at the time. A big tip of the hat to BGC for that, because I have to say that your organization was working hand in hand with us through that entire process, explaining the risk, trying to get a layperson council to fully understand piezometers and risk and 10 to the -5s and 10 to the -6s and low is reasonably practicable, all of the different standards in the system so that we can make educated decisions and support our community. And so I want to make sure that we also extend our appreciation to BGC for partnership over all those years. And that's a big part of why we got that Saskatchewan Award, because of the professionalism of your organization. At this point, I do have some members of council who have some questions on the matter. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Do you want me to move the recommendation to get it started? I'll move it. Thank you very.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation for receipt? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Mo.
Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Cole's been with us for many years, managing these risks within our community for us. And yeah, those pictures were a bit hard to see because it brings back that morning we got that phone call. Mayor Little and myself were both on council at the time, and it was the most intense experience as a councillor I've ever experienced. I do think that you meant Eliza Kuttner was a child in Hong Kong when actually the slide occurred, and she was the one that lost her life when the house fell from Berkeley. And so it was yeah, that was hard to manage through, as well as there were residents for many years that had built homes on the Blue Ridge Escarpment that could not go back to their home. They were evacuated that evening. And if you know the Blue Ridge area, when you drive up Berkeley, just past Seashelt on the left-hand side, there's sort of a green belt area, a park that's fenced off. And that property was once where 3 homes, I believe, stood. And those people were evacuated that evening and were never allowed to return to their homes again. So it was a horrific process. But how BGC managed us and allowing the information that we needed to make the best decisions, our staff at the time, it was the most transparent process, and I'm most proud of it because we had to make some very, very difficult decisions, and we were as clear and as accurate and as transparent as any government could ever be. And we got very little pushback from residents who we were telling, you can never go home. You can never go back in your house. One of my questions is about some of the decisions we made at that time. And we did learn that many of the downspouts coming off the roofs were not being channeled into the storm. They were actually running off the bank. And I'm interested to understand why in the additional recommendations on page 36 of the package, but page 4 of the report, where it says manage runoff from hard surface areas such as roofs and driveways by collecting and diverting to the municipal stormwater system or the alternate stormwater system, why we are not requiring that any longer when we did during that event. We basically told people, if you were not going to be hooking in, we would be coming in and hooking in for you, and we would pass on the cost to your tax bill. So can we elaborate on what's happened since then?
Please.
Through your worship, the homes along the crest of the Berkeley Escarpment were connected to the municipal storm drainage system through an area-specific bylaw at the time. And that bylaw was imposed due to the significant unacceptable risk to homes below. I believe that all homes along the Berkeley Escarpment are connected to the municipal stormwater system. We do have a number of other properties along the crest of escarpments that are not connected, but there are not homes at the base of those escarpments. And it's something that we have managed over the years. At one point, we had an incentive program for people to voluntarily connect, and we gave them a financial incentive to do so. And the remainder have been managed as properties redevelop and they apply for a building permit. We would require the connection at that time.
Is there municipal infrastructure below, trail systems, those homes that are not connected in some of those areas? Is there anything that could be at risk?
In some cases, that it's a possibility, yeah.
Right. So I'm very interested in looking at the additional recommendations in regards to the recommendations for property owners. And I'll take my other 2 minutes, please. And understanding how that is going to be communicated to those property owners that are not connected. Obviously, since that time when that event occurred, it was very cold. And then it warmed up very quickly. And then there was a huge amount of rain. And that's why we continue to have the piezometers that sit at the Blue Ridge Escarpment. I believe we still have them sitting there monitoring. But what we know now is the amount of precipitation and the systems that are coming into our region are so much different than they were 20 years ago, where we have mass amounts of precipitation in very dense situated areas. And we've even had one of our previous engineers state that engineering can do their best, but they can no longer hold back Mother Nature because of these increased systems. So we also have climate change to deal with, the loss of the hemlocks failing because our climate is becoming drier and the conditions of our slopes. So I think those recommendations to property owners we need to heed. And I would like to understand how we are going to communicate that going forward, hence the pictures in your presentation where there is still people making decisions that are not in the best interest of anyone, including themselves. Also, I'd like to look at the recommendations for the district, and I'm particularly interested in E, which is consider a monitoring program for slope conditions, including regular LiDAR collection and change detection analysis. I sit at the base of the Berkeley Escarpment, and we have had a slide in that area many years ago due to a runoff from a site above the the Capilano Escarpment that was due to human error. And then we had the crack of the ridge that came into the Seymour and displaced the river table and the bridge over into Metro Vancouver's lower park areas in the demonstration forest. So these things still happen. And we hope that the work that we've done avoids the habitable areas of our community, but obviously we've got a lot of people roaming through our forests and our trail systems, and we need to take heed that we are making sure that those slopes are as monitored as we can. And I thank BGC, you've been with us for a long time. I wish we didn't have to have you, but I'm glad we did. So I'm particularly interested in those and how staff can come back and help us advance those recommendations. I know this conversation will never be over as we live on a mountain. And I look forward to those reports. Thank you both for your expertise and your dedication to this work and for helping us understand how to make our communities safer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Murray. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions and then a comment. Currently, we are looking, as a council, we are looking at a zoning bylaw rewrite. And I was curious to know how much of this landslide risk assessment maybe fed into, or what sort of collaboration there was with the rewrite.
Well, I'm wondering if Mr. Milburn might take that one.
Mr. Milburn.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. Staff had at their disposal numerous policies, environmental policies, hazardous policies, and other things that have been worked on for many, many years. This is new information. I think the important point to note, and council will receive a full presentation on this in the near future, we're not looking at expanding or increasing total floor area potential or increasing the amount of unit count potential. The levels of risk in terms of the area and numbers of units is the same in both circumstances with the existing zoning and the proposed R1, R2 zoning. However, we of course take all of these matters incredibly seriously, and we will continue to support the team who's advancing these conversations, because our team is also responsible for implementation. So the review of permits and applications that come in, and we always want to ensure that they're achieving the best standards of the day, and that people have best available information when they're making decisions about their application and the decisions staff make in their approvals. Thank you.
Yeah. If I may, just a follow-up, and the PPE group does excellent work. So this is not a comment on that. I was just wondering if there was a correlation or a relationship between the recommendation not to have basements, and does that play into reducing landslide risks of homes near the edge of an escarpment?
Your worship, as had been previously presented to council at various workshops, there's a host of reasons for looking at modifications to the basement. Well, we call it basement incentivization, where we have excluded areas for basements, and staff are recommending taking away that exclusion that has been endorsed by council at first reading, and we're looking forward to that ongoing conversation. There is potential with increased basements because they add various things such as weight, and they also displace water, existing groundwater conditions. And certainly if applicants are looking to pump groundwater ever or modify the groundwater in some way with their design, staff look very carefully at those types of situations and ensure that we have qualified professionals that both prepare designs and review those designs to ensure they're meeting modern standards. And we also ensure that the information such as the report presented tonight is available to those professionals in the preparation of their work, to ensure that we, whatever is proposed, is within the risk tolerance criteria that council has established. Thank you.
Thank you. Just another question. I was just looking at, I'm trying to understand the area of your reports. Did your study include homes outside of the urban containment boundary?
So we looked at predominantly homes that had already been assessed on escarpment slopes. And so you'll see those, the Westland, the Pemberton Heights, Berkeley as listed. And then what we did beyond that was we did a screening level review. So if you imagine, a math equation that you have when you're in, I'm not sure what grade it would be, maybe grade 3, where you learn to reverse the math equation.
Yeah.
We reversed the math equation and said, what would the conditions have to be in these locations to exceed the risk tolerance criteria? And then looked to see, does anything meet that criteria? So it's like, a little bit of reversing, grade 3. I think it's grade 3. My kids aren't quite there yet, math. And we did that in order to do a screening level review. We didn't identify any other locations. And the key thing there is what this study is looking at is a type of landslide that originates from these escarpment slopes where you've got an area of slope that's elevated and an area below, and you've got a slope in between. You need a certain size slope in order to just generate enough energy in a landslide to be able to destroy or damage a building down slope to such an extent that the occupants would potentially be at risk of losing their lives. When you've got smaller escarpments, you just don't have enough energy in the landslides. You may have other areas, and you do have other areas where there are different slope hazard types like rock fall that are outside of this work. But from the standpoint of the landslides on the escarpment slopes, we looked at all of the escarpments that are shown in the report. We also did a screen across the remainder of the district. In the slope hazard areas, we didn't identify anything that appeared to have the potential to exceed, but there are other hazard types to keep in mind.
Okay. other hazard types. Got it. I just want to echo some comments earlier. This council has been dealing with a lot of technical information in the last couple of weeks on a whole bunch of issues that I won't get into, but I just want to comment on your presentation. It was very understandable, and it made me comfortable that I could follow along and try to understand what sort of risk there might be for the residents of the district. So thank you for that.
I'll say thank you and also acknowledge the staff in this room. We did a presentation with them a few weeks ago, and I'm really grateful for a lot of the feedback that I received. So thanks all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I remember that morning really clearly in January 2005. I was in third year university and getting ready to go out to UBC. My father worked for the district at the time, and I remember I just remember how he sprung into action, how I'm sure everybody did here, and I can only imagine what it was like for people here. We're on council and our staff, and it obviously it started so much of this work. Much of it had been done before, but really this important work that's happened in the years since that tragedy is such important work. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight. And I just want to say that I support all of the recommendations that are here. I wanted to ask about just how we currently provide information and educate residents, and where do we want to potentially go with that as being one of the district's recommendations. How do we speak to residents about this, particularly those in some of these areas that are in higher risk areas?
Through your worship, over the years we've utilized a number of different approaches to communicating in dialogue with our residents, and one of the things that struck me when Councillor Mary was speaking earlier was that in the immediate aftermath of the Berkeley landslide, staff and council stood shoulder to shoulder with the community and looked at the problem together as opposed to looking from different perspectives. And I think that that's been an approach that we've carried on with. In terms of modernizing our approach to communication with residents, I was working with Amanda Vantel earlier today about creating more modern graphics and more easily digestible chunks of information that people can view on their mobile phones instead of one big graphic with all of the information that would be hard to read on a small screen. I've worked very closely with the comms department on key messaging and ways that we can reduce difficult technical information into digestible chunks. I was recently at a conference with Lauren in Edmonton called Geohazards 9, and we spoke on a panel about risk communication in communities. And I guess the other thing is, we have gone and sat at people's kitchen tables with them and looked at paper reports and talked to them, walked around their properties, looked at their creeks, looked at their retaining walls, and assisted them in understanding the information. So it's basically whatever it takes.
That's great. And as you've highlighted, the way people consume information has changed a lot in that time. So appreciate that you're looking at it through a modern perspective of how we go about it. But really good information, and you did a great job laying it out. So thanks very much for all the work.
Thank you, Councillor Back. I see no further questions from council. Receipt has been moved and seconded. I'm prepared to call the question on receipt. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for the presentation today. We normally have a leg stretch at about 9 o'clock. Can I waive it or move on? Okay. So I think probably we're going to take just a quick 5-minute break. Have everybody get an opportunity to stretch. What do we say? Sitting is the new smoking, so you have to stand up and have a stretch, and washrooms are across the hall, and then we'll resume at 9 o'clock. Right, I see 9 o'clock, so I'll have everybody take their seats again if we can. All right, we're resuming the meeting with item 8.2. This is bylaw 8784 zoning text amendment for 2131 to 2171 Old Dollarton Road, 229 to 291 Riverside Drive, and 2102 to 2128 Front Street, Maplewood Gardens. And we do have a presentation from staff, about 8 to 10 minutes.
Votes, yeah. I've got you in the back of my mind. Speak slowly.
Welcome, Taylor Jenks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, members of council and the public. The proposal before you this evening is for introduction, second, and third reading of a text amendment bylaw for the previously approved project known as Maplewood Gardens. My presentation, as Mayor Little said, is about 9 slides and approximately 8 minutes in length. So the subject site, known as Maplewood Gardens, is comprised of 3 properties bound by Old Dollarton Road, Front Street, Seymour River Place, and Riverside Drive, as shown in the aerial image above. The site is approximately 4.3 acres in size and currently sits vacant aside from one industrial tenant, with demolition of the residential area expected to proceed in the next month or so. Surrounding properties include mixed-use development, Northwoods Village to the south, 2 mixed-use developments to the west, Maplewood Plaza, which has just received occupancy, and the other 2045 Old Dollarton, which is working on issuance of a building permit. There's also existing multifamily and mixed-use developments further west and to the north. And to the east and northeast are sites identified for future multifamily, including a recreational facility to serve the Maplewood community. The subject site plays a key role in establishing the heart of the Maplewood Village Center. I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of the Maplewood Gardens project as was approved with the original rezoning. So this project has 552 residential units and roughly 8,600 square feet of commercial space distributed between 5 buildings that surround a central courtyard. Commercial units are focused on the frontage facing Seymour River Place, as shown in the images above, to complement those built with the Maplewood Plaza development to the west. The residential portion of the project includes market and below market rental housing, strata, and live workspaces. Significant on and off-site contributions are provided by way of 2 large public plazas, a central courtyard with amenity space, active transportation improvements, land dedications, and public art. The project will maintain all of these contributions, as well as the density and build forum that was previously approved. So what are the proposed changes? The primary change being proposed is the conversion of 121 units from strata, tenure to rental and below market rental, which will further contribute to the district's affordable and rental and affordable housing stock. Corresponding changes to this tenure switch are summarized as a reduction in parking, consolidation of amenity spaces, adjustment to the allocation of floor area, and the height allowed for mechanical equipment on the rooftop. These changes require a text amendment bylaw to proceed. However, a public hearing is prohibited in accordance with the Local Government Act. So I'm going to use the site plan to discuss the primary change in tenure. So building C1 and C2 on the left will continue to include 255 strata units and approximately 8,600 square feet of commercial space along Seymour River Place. Building R1 on the bottom right, which was previously a combination of market and below market rental, is going to transition to a fully below market rental building with 80 units instead of 60. Building R2 at the top right remains a rental building with 97 units. And finally, building R3 is converting from fully strata to fully rental and will include 120 market rental units. Overall, this means 121 less strata, 101 additional rental, and 21 additional below market rental units. The total density and unit count of the project is not proposed to change. The second change to the CD 152 zone is the allocation of floor area, primarily for amenity rooms. Strata amenities are shown in red in the images above, with rental in yellow and below market rental in blue. With the tenure switch from strata to rental, the developer is consolidating amenity spaces associated with each tenure. 5 amenity spaces were proposed in the original design, with 1 in each building. And the amended floor plan consolidates these into 1 for the strata buildings, 2 for the rental buildings, and 1 space for the below market rental. The values shown below each image are captured as density exemptions in the CD zone. The third change is to the parking provisions. I know there's a lot of numbers, but let me walk through them with you. In the first table, we show the parking rates from the existing CD zone, shown in red. When applied to the 10-year mix at the time of rezoning, this resulted in 545 parking stalls. In the second table, we've applied the same parking rates approved under the CD zone to the new 10-year mix with additional rental and below market rental units. The parking requirement is then reduced to 504 stalls. The third table shows that the applicant is proposing a reduction in the parking rate for the remaining strata units from 1.1 per unit to 1 per unit. This would equate to a reduction of 26 stalls or 5% and would result in a total of 478 parking stalls. It is worth noting that the commercial and visitor parking remains consistent throughout. Sorry, working on delays here. During review of the application, notice was provided to approximately 400 owners and occupants within 100 meters of the site. Only 5 responses were received by staff. Comments expressed general support for the change in tenure and increase in rental and below market rental housing. There was also concern with the reduction in parking provided on site and the perceived impacts to parking availability on adjacent streets, both for residential and commercial purposes. The proposed change in parking rates aligns with the district's alternative vehicle parking rate policy and is supported by TDM measures such as contributions to pedestrian and bicycle transportation networks, improvements to bus stops, bicycle storage and maintenance facilities, and multimodal wayfinding signage, amongst others. The applicant has made an effort to provide 2 levels of underground parking on a site which is challenged by groundwater. As a result of the proposed reduction, the applicant will be able to reduce the size of the 2-story excavation and parkade, and also the embodied carbon associated with the project. No comments were received from the public regarding the other proposed amendments, and statutory notice was also provided prior to tonight's council meeting. In closing, the OCP provides direction to consider reduced parking requirements as incentives to encourage additional rental and below market rental housing in the district. The proposal up for your consideration this evening is proposing additional rental and below market rental housing and is providing parking supported by the district's AVPR policy and additional TDM measures. If able to proceed as proposed, the development will form a contribution to a key site at the heart of the Maplewood Village Center. The bylaws are ready for first, second, and third readings, and staff as well as the applicant team are available to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you very much. I'll be moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Pope. Just my comments generally on it. I'm certainly supportive of the switch to a higher ratio of rental units in the space. I am curious if the applicant or staff can tell us. I know we can't predict what the market rates will be at the time the building is completed. But if it were up and running today, I'm guessing new rental in Maplewood would probably be somewhere around 4.25 per square foot per month. Do we have a number of what the approximate market number would be? And I'm not going to hold you to it. I know that the market will change.
I had this question before through your worship. Yeah, we're actually starting to lease up the building right next door to it, and we're expecting just around that 4.25, 4.30 a square foot, depending on size of unit. Goes up with smaller units, goes down with larger units.
Yeah, so the rental market is certainly producing some solid numbers in terms of compared to some of the strata prices that they've seen with the oversupply of completed strata units and slow absorption. It's making it harder for that to be marketable. And so I understand the switch, and I'm supportive of the switch of having a higher ratio of rental in this highly transit service area. I guess my only remaining concern is about the parking ratio. This neighborhood is under an acute parking challenge already between the workers that are coming to that neighborhood and the residents that have had to pay for parking. It's a parking challenge all day long because the local workers leave, but then the workers from the commercial businesses come in during the day, and it's got a serious challenge for parking. I don't put all of the solution to that onto the shoulders of this particular project. And I do appreciate that they've met our alternate rate for parking and have presented a number of transportation ban management tools in order to be able to try to manage people who don't want to have a car. I'm still worried about what impact it's going to have on the community. On the whole, I'm still supportive of the project and supportive of the change. So I've moved the staff recommendation. Councillor Pope, you're the seconder. You want to comment?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Little. I'll be supporting this amendment. The original approval of Maplewood Gardens was made by this council in 2025, and tonight we're not revisiting that decision. We're considering whether a portion of those already approved units should be secured as rental rather than strata. The answer is clearly yes. We have a well-documented need for rental housing in this community, and this amendment adds 101 net new market rentals and 20 additional below market units secured in perpetuity without changing the site's overall footprint or density. I do want to be transparent. I'm aware that this site sits in close proximity to the Chemtrade facility, and council has an open public hearing record on that matter with a decision scheduled for July 6th. I want to be clear that I'm treating those as distinct and separate proceedings. Tonight's question is tenure. And on that question, more rental and more below market housing is straightforwardly the right outcome for our community. And I'll be voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. It won't be a surprise to know that I will not be voting in favor of this. I'm stunned, actually, and disappointed, Mayor Little, in your comments that you understand the impacts of parking in this neighborhood and yet feel the need to support this change. Rental rates right now in the region are dropping. They've been dropping steadily since the restriction on immigration, international students, and the change from purpose or Airbnb suites no longer being allowed in strata condo units. That was made by the provincial government. It was a switch that was turned off when those decisions were made in regards to rental rates, not to mention the economy. And I hear that this is more about the impact and the cost of accommodating a water table, as this area is on a floodplain. And quite frankly, this is becoming a bit of a trend. I think this is the third request that we've received from the development community to reduce parking and consider the cost of infrastructure, and would we be interested in absorbing it? I decline. This is a business decision the development community is making, and they need to understand the impacts and the cost. Maplewood is a landlocked area with no alternatives to the amount of density that this council has already determined for this area. And to my surprise, the comment that we're looking at putting a recreational facility in this area. I didn't know that. And I'm the chair of the Rec Commission. So news to me. I'm stunned that we don't understand the impacts of this area. This is the neighborhood that I live in. I understand it very well. My children work. All three of them have worked at Northwoods Village. They are told to park behind the Esso station off of Dollarton Highway next to a railway track. And my children all worked the late shift and were asked to walk to that Esso station so they could park, because there is no employee parking in that mall. There's no employee parking on the street. There's no parking for the people that work in the industrial areas. And we are find even more areas impacting light industrial and commercial properties for ever more residential density. And I ask this council to consider the impact with some of the decisions that we're making in regards to business. We have focused solely on residential development. For the past 2-3 councils, we have done nothing to look at the business and employment state of our municipality. We are not looking at the impacts of the surrounding businesses that already exist. And we're not dealing with the issues around parking at all. We think that people are just going to simply get on a bus that doesn't exist. And we've just heard TransLink tell us that they don't even know if the BRT is going to be funded. And yet this is a bus-friendly area. I just, the idea that renters don't have cars, I think is insulting to renters. I think lots of renters have cars. And I think the stalls that we've got in this project is barely 1 per unit. We've got 522 units and existing 545 stalls. Where are they to park? There is no place in that area for people to park. You cannot park on Dollarton. There is no parking. And now we're going down to 478. So is this really about thinking that renters don't have cars, or is this more about this is costing us a lot of money, this project, and we got to figure out a way to lower our costs? I'll come back again, Mayor Little.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do appreciate the work that staff has done. Appreciate the applicants' efforts in this regard. Thank you to council members who spoke before me. I will not be supporting the zoning text amendment. I voted against this rezoning when it came before us for first, second, and third reading in July of 2024. My reasons then related to the number of units, the likely residents that are likely to come to the community, the number of parking spaces and cars, and our incapacity, in my view, for infrastructure to accommodate these additional populations. At that time, I stated that I might view the proposal more favorably if there were more rental and more affordable units. And yes, we do have a housing crisis. It's an affordable housing crisis. It's a crisis of affordability. We have apparently 4,000 vacant condo units unsold across Metro Vancouver. There's no crisis of product. There's a crisis of affordability. So I look at these projects according to whether they provide an affordability solution. And it's true that this proposal has more rental units, whereas the last proposal was 68% market. This proposal is 53% rental. And this certainly, from my point of view, does make it more attractive because over time, rental units provide a more affordable option. However, I'm still not inclined to support this level of density at this location at this time for the reasons stated by Councillor Meary. This area is very congested. I am not confident that needed investments in infrastructure will be coming anytime soon. Indeed, information that's come our way over the last 2 years, if anything, has made us think that we're not going to be seeing the investments in infrastructure. Apparently, as we heard earlier in the meeting today, the Metrotown to North Shore bus rapid transit has not reached 10% towards the planning phases, and funding isn't available, and there absolutely no sense of a timeline as to when that might be completed. Given the state of the province's finances, they're, as I noted at this table not too long ago, they're canceling care facilities. Their finances have reached a stage where partially built hospitals in Burnaby, the Burnaby Hospital Extension, and care facilities simply are not of sufficient priority that they can find it in their budget. They are apparently considering finding money to buy at market rates 2,000 condos from developers that are sitting unsold because they're concerned about developers losing money. But anyway, we'll leave it to them to sort out their fiscal issues and their priorities. There's no reason to believe that there's likely to be investments in transportation, medical, school, or other necessary infrastructure in any time frame which is meaningful or will be meaningful to the citizens of Maplewood. So in my view, today, as it was back in July of 2024, it would be reckless to approve a project of this magnitude at this location at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Thank you, Councillor Ma.
Thank you. I supported this project when it originally came before this council. Was it March 2025? Or it's fine. I don't have any issues with the proposed switch of 121 units from strata to rental, including 20 units at below market rental. That's the choice of the developer, and I respect that. And they're responding to current market conditions. I just want to point out it's not something that the district is asking for. You may recall with a recent project on Seymour River Place, I was concerned about the low parking ratio, especially because it's in the Maplewood area. I have similar concerns about the proposal to allow this developer to reduce the number of parking stalls at Maplewood Gardens. As pointed out by staff, there's a concentration of new projects in various stages in the Maplewood area. And the streets are already congested. There are many work trucks in there and also vehicles from other businesses. Because of this, I can foresee on-street parking will be an issue if the parking in these new developments are maxed out. I also want to point out the public input that's in the staff report. Generally, they're supportive of this project, the conversion of units from strata to rental and below market housing. I think everyone can get behind that. But the public input also had concerns about the reduced parking rates in the area perceived to have insufficient parking. And there's general concern with lack of commercial and employee parking in the neighborhood. I would say these 3 points nicely summarize my own thoughts on this. I fully acknowledge what's in the OCP, that Maplewood is one of the 4 town centers, and I looked up the district's alternative vehicle parking rate policy, and by moving to rentals, a reduction in parking stall for this project is not unexpected. However, at this point, I'm not in favor of a reduction in parking stalls, and I cannot support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would probably really love to know Councillor Beck and Councillor Forbes's comments. All right. I guess I see no further speakers. Oh, there we go. Councillor Beck.
Let me reveal my position here. Thank you very much, Mayor Little, and to my colleagues for their comments. I was also supportive of this project when it came to council in 2025, and I remain supported. I think it's going to deliver even more rental homes, and including non-market rental homes, which we know are in need. And as far as the parking ratio goes, I do think this is an area that is fairly well served by transit. I think it will get better in the years ahead, but I'm not as concerned about that. One thing I wanted to highlight was the change in the development cost charges. They went from $5.3 million to $22.4 million. I wonder if staff could comment. I know obviously it changes with Metro, DCCs and rates, and I wonder if I could just get a comment from staff as to why they went up over 300%.
Through your worship, the largest portion of the change is reflective of the Metro increase, which we will potentially see come back down, but we haven't explored the full extent of that yet.
So, I mean, that's obviously not going to contribute to the affordability of projects like this when we're seeing those kinds of increases, but it was one number that stood out to me. But in terms of the change here in tenure, I think this will deliver much needed rental housing in an area of the community where we need it in a town center. So I'm happy to continue to offer my support.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Beck. Councillor Forbes, please.
Thank you. I was not in favor of this development for some of the reasons already mentioned, the parking, the density, the fact that there was a lot more strata at that time. And I'm still not in favor of the project. As much as we gained a little bit of below market, we gained it bumped it up to 15% of the total development is now below market, but 15% is pretty low. The strata represents 46% and the market rental represents 39%. So I would like to have seen, I'm glad that it's gone to rental more than strata. I think that probably makes the project much more viable. But I just look at the market and below market rentals and it's the rate is 3/4, 0.75 of each unit is allocated for a stall. So that's 223 stalls with 297 units. Again, I think someone already said this, that I don't assume that people who rent don't have cars. I just don't assume that. I know that the transportation in that area, coming along from Mount Seymour Parkway to along Riverside to come into Maplewood, is hit and miss. It's not great. And we can say, oh, well, we'll do this and transportation is coming, but it might take 10 years to get transportation in there. So I'm concerned about that. And transportation and density and parking, lack of sufficient parking, because I know, and I bet probably most of council knows somebody who works down in there, Maplewood, as it's expanding, and the employees don't have parking. So it's really almost to the point where there's going to be road rage over open parking spaces on the streets. So given that the parking is, I'm glad it's rental, but given that the parking is so low and doesn't address employment or extra parking spaces, I'm going to have to say that I wouldn't support this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murray.
I just wanted to thank Councillor Hanson for bringing up the issue of the affordability crisis versus the housing crisis. Even in our annual report, we continue to point out that we're in a housing crisis void of the data that is available on a daily basis, saying that there are a significant number of units coming available, and the rates have actually dropped. I had a girlfriend that was on a BC housing list for 10 years, working on the North Shore, living just off of Southeast Marine Drive, traveling every single day to work on the North Shore where she grew up. And she still didn't get a place in social housing. She actually found an apartment up in Lynn Valley in a basement suite below the rate of social housing. That was a year ago. So I think that we need to start recognizing that things change and we cannot remain static in regards to what is going on in our community. Right now, there is a number of units coming online, and that is lowering the cost in addition to the changes that I spoke about before. And now we're going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for infrastructure. Because of recent announcements by the federal government, the fact that Metro Vancouver 4 years ago made the commitment that growth needs to pay for growth in regards to the DCCs, and now have pivoted away from that commitment. So, and we have had interest in the council considering absorbing the costs of infrastructure, future infrastructure on
projects that have already been zoned, which gives me great concern because growth has not paid for growth up until this point. We were finally recognizing that it needed to do that. We made a decision. We have reneged on that decision. And now, because of the economy, we're trying to figure out ways how to avoid decisions of infrastructure. So as far as buses and expanding bridges, I'm not optimistic because of the place that we find ourselves in. We need to slow down, we need to step back, and we need to figure out how we're going to move forward in a sustainable way.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Mall.
I just want to clarify something. I still support this project, notwithstanding the 10-year switch. It's the reduced parking that I have a concern about. And can I just clarify something, Mr. Mayor? This motion didn't pass. At this point, what happens to the project, or are we able to entertain another motion?
Yes, well, I'll check with the clerk. Normally in a bylaw, if you're choosing to take no further readings, I guess, is if you say no, but I'll double check with the clerk.
According to the procedure bylaw, if it's defeated at the vote, it would be considered abandoned and it would not be able to be considered again for a period of at least 1 year.
So but they would still have their original project, which was approved by council. They just wouldn't have the amendments to it, and council couldn't consider new amendments to it for a year. The other alternative is to refer and say that which aligns with option 2 in the report, which basically would be saying that the item gets referred back to staff, and then we haven't actually defeated first reading at that point. We've referred the matter to staff for further clarification.
So since we vote, well, sorry, we haven't called the vote yet.
I haven't called the vote
yet. So is it appropriate to make a motion for option 2 at this point, or after?
We still have speakers at this point, and once the speaker's exhausted, I can test that if there's an interest in referring the matter. If the vote is as it's reflected, I mean, if I don't want to give you poor direction, but if your support is very close to being support and your only concern is about the parking, which again, the parking is a significant portion of cost because it would mean a third level of parking if you didn't come down to this level of ratio of parking. It may determine whether the project can go ahead or not based on cost, but
that's why it might be appropriate to.
Why don't I go through the speakers list and then we'll double check in on a referral motion. If there's no interest on a referral motion, then I'll call the question on the original motion.
Sure. I will follow your lead.
Okay. Councillor Back, your comments?
Well, I hear a lot of the same old arguments around the table here that you could say just about any rezoning project in the district. It often becomes about parking in the end, instead of the homes and the opportunities that you could create for the people that would live there. New housing becomes more affordable over time. It's just the nature of the price of new versus older housing, and we know that the most affordable housing in our community right now is old. By saying no and not allowing some of these key sites to be redeveloped, and Maplewood Gardens is one of those key sites that has been considered and looked at for years as a redevelopment site. Nothing's going to be becoming more affordable there, and we're looking at rejecting this potentially or referring it, adding more time, more delay, which we know that makes nothing more affordable the longer we delay things. So I think you've got an opportunity to respond to the proposal here, which is looking at today's market conditions and what's actually going to be a viable project that gets built, or we add more delay and potentially see this site sit with no homes. So that's kind of what it comes down to for me.
Thank you. So it looks like I've got 2 minutes to appeal to Councillor Hanson to see if Councillor Hanson is willing to entertain either a change of vote or a referral to staff. We're not talking about the building. The building is already approved in a way that I think you've already suggested is not palatable to you. But the changes that are proposed fall pretty close in line with a lot of the principles that you suggest in the community. It's going to add 30% more affordable units. It's going to reduce the number of parking spaces that are there. It's going to have a higher ratio of rental, over 50%, I believe, is the total count now of rental in there. And all three of those principles are principles that you've outlined over and over and over again. So I have to assume that these changes make the project better for you. And so I guess my question is, would you be willing to refer the matter back to staff or change your vote? And you have 2 minutes remaining to speak, and so I'll let you consider it. But I think ultimately you come down to the situation where voting against this is actually voting against all of those principles that you've outlined many times before and articulated very well in the community.
I'll put on the spot here.
Yeah, when did we do that?
I can make an argument. We're allowed to make arguments. So
in my humble opinion, you can make an argument about your views, but I think there's unfair pressure on Councillor Hanson, unless Councillor Hanson's fine with it. I just think it's unfair.
He can take it.
I'll back off, but the truth is, I have changed my vote midpoint because of arguments council members have made. Councillor Ma, you have changed your vote on previous votes.
I have
arguments, council,
but I haven't been lobbied by the chair of the council.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I don't think it's outside of our council procedures bylaw, but I'll take the hint, and I've probably shot my best shot already anyway. So the next speaker I have is Councillor Pope.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for voicing those points, because I agree with it. This council is very fond of talking about how much we need affordable housing, how much we need to build for the community, and yet when it comes time to vote, I repeatedly see these projects getting kiboshed over things like parking. Well, in other jurisdictions, councils are asking developers to reduce the parking because it reduces the cost and it reduces the congestion. So I'm always hearing all of this concern about infrastructure. We need the infrastructure to build more. Well, actually reducing parking infrastructure reduces the number of cars on the road. And this is what many, if not most, other councils have figured out long ago around the world. And here is this council going back to the drawing board again, wanting this project, because that's what it essentially does, kibosh this project that people need, that does provide affordable housing because of a few parking spaces. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Like none. And what it really says to me is that the members of this council that are voting against it because of the parking, what it's really about is they're just anti-development of any kind. And that's the way this council has always been. That's its reputation. And that's why so many really good projects have not been built over the years, including ones that were fully funded by the province.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hanson, if I applied too much personal pressure, I apologize, but the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
I do agree with something Councillor Pope said tonight. I can take it. You can weigh upon me in any way you like. It is true that in the past I have supported rental. I've supported affordable housing and I've supported reduced parking. I have sought in my votes to address the housing affordability crisis. There's an overarching consideration, though, which guides my votes at this council table and my work on council generally, and that's maintaining the livability of North Vancouver. Transportation is a serious issue. We had a presentation today from TransLink. They haven't completed 10% of their planning for their signature transportation initiative, let alone when we're going to see SkyTrain or rapid transit. At the most fundamental level,
September 7th.
At the most fundamental level, the idea that you can just add people, just add, and not add the supports that these people require is, in my view, magical thinking. And we do look at every project and we ask ourselves, is there enough benefit there around affordability? Is it something that we should be supporting? Is it close enough to transit? I've looked favorably on some proposals down at Cap and Marine where I see greater transit. But as I said in my remarks, to add this level of density to this location without any hint of an infrastructure investment is, in my view, folly. And that is what underpins my vote. Thank you for putting the issue as plainly as you did and for inviting me to clarify. Thank you.
Done. Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've never been against approving a project, but you don't just approve without looking at the details. The money's in the details. And Councillor Hanson took the word I was going to say right out of my mouth. I'm for livability. I think about the people who are going to live there, who have to get places, who don't have a spot to park the car. 552 units going in is approximately over 1,000 people possibly. So you add 1,000 people in the center of this is centralized in basically in Maplewood, and you're adding in 5 more buildings. So you can't just because you can build something doesn't mean it's appropriate, doesn't mean it's going to create livability for the people who live there. So I take offense to the comment that I don't vote for building. I do, and I really like the names of the projects that got kiboshed, because I can't think of any that actually got kiboshed. We may not have, excuse me, I'm talking. The number of stalls are going down to 478. And I just think, I've driven around in that area and I've seen how people go around the block, and then they sit and they wait because they think somebody's coming out. And they don't get a parking space. So you just can't put that many people in there. Part of living is being able to have some amenities with you. And a car is an amenity. Maybe it's not number one for some people, but for a lot of people, it's a necessity. If you're a family and you have a child and you got to get them to a park for a soccer game and get your other child to swimming classes, you need a car. If you're an elderly person or a disabled person or a person with disabilities, you need a car to get around. So you can't just say that these people won't want a car parking spot. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Mah. And if you want to refer for option 2, now's the time to do it.
I find it totally inappropriate that certain members of this council feels that it's acceptable to disparage the opinion of others when that opinion does not agree with her. Unbelievable. We all have our own opinions and we're trying to find the best way forward. I supported this project. There's a change. That change is material to me. I would like our staff and the applicant to try to find something that the majority of this council can agree to. I'm not saying no, but find something that will work for the majority of this council. It doesn't have to be everybody. This has to be the majority, a simple majority. Thank you. Now, should I make a motion or I'll follow your lead?
Yeah, no, I'll check in with the clerk. Motion of referral at this point, is that appropriate?
Because I don't want it to wait a year. If it's defeated, if it has to wait a year, I don't want that to happen.
Your worship, the motion on the floor right now is to give this first, second, and third readings. You could do an amendment to the motion to just give first reading and refer back to staff at this point, so we don't have to give notice of first reading again. Alternatively, perhaps Mr. Milburn would like to comment on an alternative bylaw if this one fails.
Double check with Mr. Milburn, although it's still not clear on referral. Is referral not an option on a bylaw consideration then?
In this case, it would be an option if the bylaw was given first reading and referred back to staff.
Okay, you'd have to give it first reading first, then referral. Okay, Mr. Milburn.
Your worship, staff believe that's a workable solution so that we could try to address, to the extent noted by the mover, the concerns by council.
Okay, so then the only way I could accommodate that, then it would be if we bifurcate the motion into first, second, third readings, and then Councillor Ma could go for first, and then we'll test it that way. I see no further speakers on the matter. I'm going to bifurcate the motion. No, referral said, I was told referrals inappropriate. So we're going to test the motion, but bifurcate it, which means we'll test first reading. And if it gets support, it's granted first reading. Then we'll test second reading. And if it's granted second reading, then it gets second reading. So I'm prepared to call the motion bifurcated. So on the first item, which is on first reading, call the question. All in favor? Motion carries with Councillors Forbes, Murray, and Hanson opposed. On second reading, I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor? The matter is defeated with Councillors Ma, Hanson, well, yes, Ma, Hanson, Forbes, and Murray opposed.
Not giving us an opportunity to raise our hands against, I find that.
Apologies, you're correct. That would be in correct order. I'll call the question. Who's opposed to second reading? Okay. Yeah, and so that reflects the result I had said, which is Councillors Ma, Hanson, Forbes, and Murray are opposed. Now I want to double check back in with staff. We have granted first reading. We have not advanced second and third reading. What status does that leave us in? Or do you need a referral motion to send the matter back to staff?
Through you, Your Worship, I recommend a referral motion back to staff at this point.
Okay. I'll be moving referral back to staff. Is there a second on the matter? Councillor Ma. Any other? Oh, there's no discussion on referral, right? Or is that just deferral? Okay, so you can debate referral. I have no further comments on referral. Councillor Ma, do you have any further comments on referral?
I'll hold my thoughts for now.
Okay. Councillor Murray, you're on the board. Is that on referral, please?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it's so difficult for us to consider the community for once. I haven't seen a project be defeated in this council for years. And the densities that are growing in these projects is exponential. We are densifying parts of Lynn Valley in complete opposition to the majority of the community. We have densified the Parkway, which is completely not in keeping with the surrounding projects that we've looked at over the years. We're densifying this area, squeezing as many units as we can in areas with lack of infrastructure. Congestion is the #1 issue in the municipality. It will be the #1 issue as part of the election. And I am talking about referral. I don't know what we're referring back. What else are they going to do? I know. Why don't we reduce the number of units? If they can't pay for the number of parking spots to accommodate just one unit per one parking stall per unit with commercial and visitor added in. That's all this is. We're not asking for the market units to have 2. We're just saying the market units get 1, and then we have some additional parking for visitors and commercial spaces in an area that has no parking currently on a street that is not developed at all. Old Dollarton has no development on it. The local businesses fill Old Dollarton with cars, with their commercial vehicles every single day down to the end of the road. How are you going to accommodate them? Any ideas? Because all of the developments that we're building, the cars spill over into the area, and it is a growing problem. So maybe the densities are too high. Maybe the densities are not in keeping with the neighborhoods and with the intent of the official community plan, the sustainability of the official community plan. We already are considering looking at paid parking in villages like Lower Cap and Lower Lynn to control the parking demand, because we've been deficient in the parking units in those projects, and they're landlocked as well. I can go back 4 councils ago, and when we put that seniors housing project in by Phibbs Exchange, the comment from one of the councillors was, well, residents that are coming to visit their loved ones at the seniors home, maybe they could go park in Canadian Tire. Do you think the issue has gotten better, council? It hasn't gotten better. If you think that density is somehow reducing the car, then you should look at license plate stats with ICBC and how they have gone up exponentially. Because communities of wealth want convenience, and convenience are cars. And there is no shortage of cars in this community. I think I believe that we don't understand who we are as a community anymore. We really don't understand what our residents want. We don't understand what they're frustrated about, what they're challenged about, sitting in traffic jams every single day. And for some reason, we think density is going to solve all this problem. And it has not solved the problem. It's made the problem worse. And we don't want to admit that. And I don't know why we want to fight our communities so much. We used to actually, we heard a presentation about standing side by side and working together. And we don't do that anymore. We're divided constantly. It's 4-3 all the time. We say that we want to listen to people during an election, but then when it comes to actually listening to them in a public hearing, we ignore them. So this will be an election issue, absolutely, because people are sick and tired of the amount of development in this community. All we do is put up our hands. We never say no. We talk about saying no, and then we bring it back again and we vote in favor of it. It's unbelievable. Democracy, and you wonder why people don't vote? This is why they don't vote, because we never listen to them.
Thank you very much. All right. I see no further speakers on the matter. Okay. Prepared to call the question on referral to staff. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? All right. Then it's not referred to staff, which leaves us in a strange position. We've now given first reading, and the matter is now taking no additional readings at this time. I want to understand how staff will interpret that. Mr. Milburn.
No additional reading.
Your worship, we'll speak to the applicant afterward. They have options to modify their application and look for potentially a new application. Essentially, a first reading without moving any further forward, which is the direction we're receiving from council, would mean that would principally be the direction that we'd be discussing with the applicant, is essentially a new application, if they wish to proceed at all.
They'd have to come forward with a new application. Okay. All right. Well, that's the decision of the council, I guess. So I'll move on to the next item, but unfortunately, I wish it was clearer direction, but at this point it is no additional readings, and the project applicants will either have to build it as previously approved, or they'll have to come forward with a new application for the project. Okay, moving along to item 8.3. This is items, this is the bylaw 8802 and 8803, Heritage Revitalization Agreement and Heritage Designation, 3526 Everglade Place.
Yeah, good evening, your worship. Could I be?
Sorry, yes.
Sorry.
Could staff, I would like to make a brief introduction.
Yes, please.
Good evening. So this next item, an application for Heritage Realization Agreement for the heritage house known as the Prairie Residence. The house was an early example of Arthur Erickson, the famous West Coast architect, and as applicant Stephen Bailey mentioned, and is listed on the District Community Heritage Register. Basically, the HRA, the Heritage Realization Agreement, will facilitate the restoration and relocation of the Prairie residence on the site while allowing a 3-lot subdivision. And also along with the HRA bylaw, there is also a designation bylaw, which would have the effect of permanently protecting the Prairie residents. I also want to let you know that for this application, a complete application was submitted to the district on March 24th, 2026 this year, and is now ready for council consideration. And tonight is the occasion of first reading of the bylaws. So in accordance with the LGA, the Local Government Act, HRA is subject to a public hearing. So if council tonight refers the proposal to a public hearing, staff will be making a full presentation at the hearing and fully analyzing the merit of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Yan Zhang. Councillor Muir, you have a motion?
I'd like to move the staff recommendation.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the staff recommendation? Councillor Ma? Go ahead, Councillor Muir, your comments.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'm so happy that we've gotten this before July 1st, and thank you for being so patient and watching council in action. I'm sure it was very enlightening for you this evening. Mr. Stephen Bailey and his family, he spoke earlier, and this is a project of passion and protection of a very unique piece of architecture in our community. Pieces of architecture that sadly are disappearing. And with no protection from the provincial government in regards to heritage homes because of recent legislation, we're going to see an increased level of loss with these amazing homes in our midst. I'd also like to thank Ms. Yang Zhen and Mr. Kevin Zhang in our staff departments in planning because they worked really hard to get this moved forward as quickly as possible. One of the reasons that we needed to move this forward quickly, and you can see in the project details, is the house is on its last legs. It's currently tarped gently, and it's unable to be moved and wrapped until this issue of the zoning for this HRA is complete, and it would not be able to withstand another winter. And this is why I brought forward the motion a couple of weeks ago in regards to prioritizing heritage homes. I know Councillor Hanson understands the sitting as our representative on the Heritage Committee, and yourself, Mayor Little, and myself as a former member of that committee. But these homes, many of them live in precarious states, and we do have to prioritize them going forward and understand the work that goes into these projects, the type of financing that families and applicants need to be able to be awarded with, and the time it takes to source the materials to be able to return these amazing pieces of architecture back to their glory. I do believe that the community, I'm hopeful that the community is going to give their great support for something that is as sensitive as this, and I'm really interested in hearing their thoughts. And I just want to say again, thank you for the patience of the applicants in your work, and we're going to see a greater presentation at the public hearing. And thank you, staff, for recognizing how precarious this house is and advancing it as quickly as you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ma.
I'm just going to turn back time a bit. I think it was on May 8th that I, at a coffee shop in the district, of course, that I met Stephen and his wife, Katie, and then at their invitation, visited the property. I'm not a heritage expert, but I'm learning a little more, and the house when I looked into it, it's a Erickson home. And it's a big lot. And the project involves lifting the house, moving it over, subdividing, and building 2 more. And it's a nice little family affair because I believe Stephen's father-in-law is going to be the architect on the project. The applicants are preserving heritage. And then 2 new homes on the subdivided lot will add additional housing capacity. There does need to be reasonable financial incentives for people to preserve heritage. And in talking with Stephen, he fully knows the risks involved and incurring the carrying costs to make this project happen. And we should encourage people to do things to preserve and build our community at the same time. I support this going to public hearing and hearing what the community has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to the applicants for bringing this matter forward, staff for all the work that has been put into it, and council members who have spoken first. I'm very pleased to support this heritage revitalization agreement going to first reading and public hearing. As council liaison to the Heritage Advisory Committee, I was present at the May 26, 2026 meeting where this was considered. I did receive a full presentation from the applicants on this proposal at this time. I totally support this proposal because it will allow for a permanent heritage preservation of a significant heritage asset in the district. I note that the site is very large, 17,800 square feet is a lot. I believe that it can easily accommodate the 3-lot subdivision that is proposed. I thank the applicant for all of their work and all of their efforts to preserve this architectural treasure in the district. And I note that the public input to this point has been positive, public commentary. So I look forward to the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'm also very supportive and want to wish all the best to Katie and Stephen as you continue this project. This has been a long process to get to this point, but this is exactly how we should be using heritage revitalization agreements and supporting those who want to embark on these kind of projects to protect heritage like an Arthur Erickson in our community. And I look forward to this having more of a presentation at the public hearing. I was the one who seconded the recent motion around how we can support heritage more in our community. And this is a good example of that. So pleased to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Forbes, first time speaker.
Thank you. I was kind of impressed with the way it's turned out for you with such a large lot that you can actually give us 2 more houses at the same time you're trying to preserve our heritage house. And so I think that's great. I'm just really impressed, and I'm glad you got that ability to be able to move the money around or finance it however you have to do it. And restoring a heritage home has to be a love. It's hard enough to restore a home that's 10 years old or fix a 10-year-old house, but to go all the way back and pay attention to those details and the craftsmanship that's in there. I'm just really impressed that you're prepared to do that. I also, besides it being an Arthur Erickson house, and it's over 60 years old, 1963, I believe. So, but besides that, I also had to note that the front door is carved by Bill Reed. I'd love to come and see the front door. Anyway, I'll say yes for this to go to public hearing.
Councillor Murray, please.
Can we just have a date on the public hearing?
I'll get that for you once we have the vote. Okay. I have a couple of questions. Just want to double check. How many dwelling units will lot A and B be permitted if this project goes ahead in this form? That's Mr. Milburn, Mr. Maselli. Yeah.
For Mayor, the applicant is proposing
The 2 new additional dwelling units on the 2 lots. So 2 new single-family homes with no secondary suites or coach houses proposed at this time.
So it would be, sorry, 3 dwelling units?
3 dwelling units in total. Yeah.
Oh, 3 dwelling units in total.
Okay. In total.
And why, I find some of the provincial regulations a little bit puzzling that the province would outlaw and or make optional public hearings on a whole swath of things. And yet here we have an HRA. I just want to double check. My understanding is this is not waivable. This is just, we're going to have to do a public hearing on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the mayor, it's a requirement under the Local Government Act to still require for public hearing.
Well, I don't get why we would have got rid of the public hearings on so many very substantive, significant projects in different communities, and then to have something that's rather modest have a requirement by law to have a public hearing. It just seems like a bizarre application of the principle. Okay, well, I'll be supportive of the matter being referred to public hearing. And so I see no further speakers. I'm prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Check in with the clerk. Do we have a tentative date for the public hearing?
This will be scheduled for July 7th.
July 7th. So July 7th is our intended tentative date. And so you're going to have to watch the agendas in the week before to see what actually ends up on that date. We'll do our best to have that line up, but sometimes things do get bumped. And so we recommend to the applicants and interested parties to watch our agendas in the week before that, just to verify that that's the plan. But right now, that is the plan, is July 7th.
That's
okay. Thank you, Council. Do we have to approve the public input portion? It's counted as a separate item in the package. No? Okay. All right. So the next item up for consideration is item 8.4. This is bylaw 8788, business license bylaw housekeeping amendment to reflect the updated non-medical retail cannabis policy. And this item is up for second and third reading. I'll be moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Hansen. Not much else to say. This brings our policy in line with the provincial government, and I'll be supportive. Councillor Hansen, your comments?
Yeah, thank you. It's true, it brings it in alignment with the provincial regulations, but it also brings it into an alignment with our own non-medical retail cannabis policy, which we passed recently. It brings it in alignment with the bylaw and rules regarding alcohol retail, and it brings it into alignment with our policy, the City of North Vancouver's policy with respect to cannabis retail hours. So I see no reason why we wouldn't seek to bring the regulations in alignment in that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray?
I agree with yourself and Councillor Hansen, Mayor Little. We did have some presentations in regards to some concerns and issues in one of the areas up in Lynn Valley Center, and I certainly encourage the speakers to report those issues. We do have business licenses that we issue, and if there's a concern coming from a business, we can address it through the business license, and I think that's a very effective way of getting a message across if there's concern in the surrounding area. And certainly we do have a number of residences that surround the mall, so we have to be very careful about their quality of life and the impact of noise. But those issues need to be reported. I think it was also important to recognize that just because you can stay open to 11 and that we are evening the level playing, we're putting a level playing field, certainly between ourselves and the City of North Vancouver, that we've always done. I remember when we were looking at the smoking bylaw, the city was looking at the smoking bylaw in pubs, and then the district was looking at it. We recognized, of course, that we needed to do it together because we couldn't impact one business over another. And so this is on the same premise. But I think it's very important to recognize that even though some businesses can stay open to 11, they choose not to.
They choose not to because they're in certain areas where the business just doesn't exist. It's hard to find employees for many of these businesses, open late. And so there's all sorts of different reasons, and it basically allows a level playing field and for the business to determine if the market is going to support later openings. So I do think this is a fair approach, and I will support it.
Thank you. See no further speakers. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, council, that concludes the business. I will double check. We do have reports available. Would any member of council like to make a report? Councillor Ma?
I'm just finding it. Okay. Friday, June 19th, I attended the North Shore Seniors Health Fair over in West Van. That senior center pops. It's vibrant. There's a lot of volunteers. There's a good turnout for the expo. There's a lot of community support sponsoring. Mrs. Philly Lee sponsored comedian Judy Crone. It was hilarious. The power of laughter. I think maybe we can have that session here one night. I couldn't resist. And then, I'll leave it for that. There's something else, but it was good. West Van and organizers of that senior fair, they did a really good job. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor Little. I just wanted to update on our stage 3 water restrictions on days of today, Monday. On Friday, there was a special board meeting called to discuss the stage 3 water restrictions at Metro Vancouver. One of the municipalities within the region, Surrey, had determined and given their GM of engineering the ability to determine what stage the municipality was at, and Surrey was sitting at stage 2. The majority of the board, the vast majority of the board, voted in favor of sending a letter to Surrey and requesting that they get in line with the rest of the region on stage 3. The concern I wanted to update the community and council that this pipe that's going at the Second Narrows Crossing is they're working 24/7 on the project right now, trying to get it online. They handed it over, I think, today to water, and now they're going through the disinfectant process of the lines and the pipes. And so that hopefully we're going to be able to get that into operation mid-July. That's their target date. And then we believe that we'll be able to pull back to stage 2. One of the reasons that we're in stage 3 right now is because all of the water lines are connected within the region and they're dealing with pressure issues. And so they have to be very careful that they don't have an additional level of pressure on a pipe. So they're evening out everything, and that's why we are at this stage 3. So they're working very hard. There is a concern when a municipality doesn't sort of stand with the rest, and I understand how challenging that is given the situation that we're in with the sewage treatment plant. I did bring that up and point that out. But in the case of water restrictions and this pipe, we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where pressure is a challenge for firefighting and emergencies. And we have had a fire recently at Pacific Spirit Park. And certainly we're watching the fire increase within the province, and the village of Lytton is dealing with a fire that is out of control at the moment.
and they've certainly had devastating impacts from fire. So given the warm, the temperature that we're dealing with right now, it's very important that we all get on board and we all stand together in this regard. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, this project will be done. They're saying mid-July to the end of July, but they know the urgency to get this work done, and they are running the shifts 24/7. Obviously, we're still in some employee relations, the union, but staff are working very hard at getting this pipe online so we can hopefully step back to stage 2 again. But I just wanted to thank the community for adhering to these restrictions and understanding. I think there's going to be some cooler weather this weekend and some precipitation that will help with watering, but it has been challenging. We haven't been in this situation for many years. I don't think we've been to stage 3 since 2015, I think, was the last time, and it was for a short period of time. I did also want to mention that, there's been some criticism about, why didn't this project get handled a bit differently? These projects are multi-year in many cases, and so this has already gone through a cycle of a year and then into another beginning of another year. And these things, we have no snowpack right now, absolute zero snowpack. So they do the very best they can to plan these projects, but there's always unintended consequences. One of them, and we've experienced this on the Parkway at Riverside Drive when we dug up the road to put new pipes in when we were doing a Metro Vancouver water main there. They opened up the road and went, "Oh my God, look at what's in the road." And this happened where they came across, layers of concrete that were very difficult to penetrate, and it slowed the project down slightly. So they're dealing with lots of infrastructure that have been changed over the decades, and many challenges. So I just wanted to update you about that because it has hit the news, and I wanted you to understand from the discussion at Metro on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for your report on that. I will just, as a member of the Water Committee, add that I don't think history will be kind to the communities that aren't pulling their weight in this. If we have a dry September and October, we will be into stage 4 restrictions this year. There is no stage 5. Stage 4 is emergency and crisis levels, where all non-essential water is not permitted to be used. It is only by health orders for drinking purposes and for firefighting purposes. And you do not want to be in stage 4. And if we don't take these matters seriously and help them preserve the pressure that they have in the dam, this could be one of those years where we have not just a small amount of stage 4, but a rather significant possibility of stage 4, particularly if we have a dry September and October. So it needs to be taken seriously. It doesn't mean you can't challenge it. There were definitely we were above normal in terms of the storage of water at the time within our system, but we were way, way, way below the snowpack. 9% of the snowpack when we went from stage 2 to stage 3. 9% of normal. And so that has to give you pause that this is to be taken seriously this year. We all hope that rain every couple of weeks, a couple of days of rain every couple of weeks, which has been really pleasant the last little bit, but hope is not a plan. And so we need to be preparing for a very challenging season.
Mayor Little, if I can just add, thank you for that additional information. I think it's really important to also understand that this year, when we were in stage 3, we used more water this year than we did the previous year in stage 2. And you really have to think about that. That's very sobering. We don't know what the future is going to hold in regards to this finite resource. We take it for granted that we're always going to have a bunch of snow in the mountains. We don't have the capacity. We do not have the capacity. They're increasing the capacity at Coquitlam. We did bring up the issue around the Fraser, the untapped ability to tap into the Fraser, how we do things differently. But the days of just assuming that we're going to have a snowpack and water's going to come out of that tap, we watched California in a drought for 20 years. 20 years they were in a drought. And now they're not, because they've got a snowpack. We just cannot take that for granted. And so these are sobering numbers and sobering situations. And I think it's, good information to understand, as challenging as it is right now.
Thank you for your report, Councillor. I'll just make one other quick report. I was able to go to the 25th anniversary of Park Pacific Arbor Retirement Communities, which has quite a number of retirement facilities in our community. I remember when the Cedar Springs facility was built, it was directly over the fence from my house. And so I wanted to know what was going on there very closely. And they brought me in and sold me on the vision of it. And I'm very glad that our community has had that option available in it since that time. And we have a tremendous amount of pressure on our seniors housing facilities. The new pro formas coming out for senior service living are coming out at $20,000 a month for the new facilities. That is, it used to be, for a period of, the last 10 years, you could count on being able to sell your house and then live out your retirement in a rather comfortable fashion. The prices that you're seeing with the crush of baby boomers all hitting that stage is that the prices are getting catastrophically high. And so I'm very glad we built that one, but we need to see more opportunity to build senior service housing in our community and support it. I see no further reports. Prepared to conclude the meeting. Council, we've finished the business of this evening's meeting, so I'll accept adjournment. Accepted from Councillor Murray. Thank you to members of the staff for preparing the reports for our consideration. Thank you to the public for sticking with us through the meeting and providing your input. And thank you to members of council for your important decisions tonight. Have a great night, everyone.